This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
No, cut that. Keep that. Someday it's going to be worth something.
Russ Wakelin.
You put me in an ATST with frickin' Wookiees attacking me and whatnot?
Now you're talking. And Michael Gernes in the third chair.
I haven't had this much on-air fun since my high school radio station.
With contribution from Total Fangirl.
Vampires do not sparkle.
And our loyal listeners.
Are you crazy? That's like 400 hours of gamer nonsense.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming at the speed of a Predator-class advanced TIE fighter with modified hyperdrive. Today's edition is brought to you by all of those great guys and gals over at Patreon. And I'm including Alan, Daniel, Joel, Al Leduc, and Nicholas Oxley. Thank you all for your support. They make it possible for us to keep on doing what we're doing. So help us keep it not too horrible and drop a twofer in the tip jar today. I'm Geekly McNerdigan, your host. Today our panelists are Russ, the wild Wookiee Wakelin, and special guest Michael, gas-breathing Gand Gernes, game producer and developer extraordinaire at Fantasy Flight Games. Let's begin. Issue number 1. As the latest in the line of space combat games set in the Star Wars galaxy, Star Wars Armada pits massive capital ships and flights of fighter craft from the original trilogy against each other in sensational cinematic battle, with the ponderous grace of the giant ships sailing through space as squadrons of snub ships and other fighters flit about, clashing with each other while positioning to make attacks against them.
Pew pew.
Question. In what battle was the Spanish Armada truly defeated? Juan Martinez de Recalde Ross.
Wait, what?
Alvaro de Brazan, first Marquis of Santa Cruz, Michael.
For the Battle of the Arctic?
Oh, no, unfortunately, it was not. It is the Battle of Gravelines. It's in French. Issue number 2. That was very sad showing indeed. Shadows of the Empire was an audacious multimedia project that purported to advance the Star Wars plot with all of the support of a feature film without actually making a feature film. It included a novel, comic books, toys, a video game, a full soundtrack, collectible cards, and even a sequel. Question. In what element of the project does Boba Fett destroy at least one of the bounty hunters from The Empire Strikes Back? And what exactly was that bounty hunter's name? Durham Red Russ.
I'm going to say it was in the video game and it was Bosk.
Midden Face McNulty Michael.
IG-88.
Ooh, I think it might have been 90. Yeah.
IG-88.
And in which medium?
He fights him on the surface of Ord Mantell, I believe.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
He actually kills IG-88B first over Bespin. I'm afraid, Michael, that I mean, it was very impressive, but I can't give you points for that because you didn't give me a letter. Okay, issue number 3. You jerk. In the Star Wars universe, the term snub fighter is often used to refer to starships in tactical and strategic debates. Although never described in any detail within the 6 current films, a great deal has been covered within the various other multimedia platforms that have further explored the galaxy far, far away. Question. There are 3 primary determinants for a ship to be referred to with the unofficial mil-speak term snub fighter. Give me 2 of the 3. Arhul Nara Russ.
I'm going to go with one single crew and torpedoes.
I'm going to give you partial credit, which gives you a ruh. Hasun Moore Michael.
Well, it has to be smaller than a freighter class vessel, and it, I believe, needs to at least be a single-seater or a double-seater fighter.
I'm gonna give you a wrong. No, actually, you get a ruh, and I feel like I'm talking to the guys from the Naval War College again. Thank you very much. Officially, in all of the forms I found today, it needed to have a crew of 1 or 2, carry armament to face both capital ships and other fighters, blasters, lasers, or torpedoes, missiles, small, limited-range hyperdrives to reach neighboring systems without the need of a carrier capital ship. So that would be 1 roll and 1 rit. Issue number 4. One of the many innovative mechanisms of Star Wars Armada is the necessity of planning ahead regarding the preparation of a capital ship's future intentions. The larger the ship, the deeper the reaction curve must be, allowing smaller, more nimble ships to stand toe-to-toe with the larger ones, reacting more quickly to the developing battlefield than these behemoths can. Question. What exactly is the full definition of a reaction curve? The Quarren Wirez Wakelin.
What?
Gail Akbar Gernes.
It involves a tangent because it's a field.
This was supposed to be a gimme. Again, I feel like I'm dealing with the Naval War College, all meeting in unison. But anyway, I'm going to just count this as wrong because I'm getting bitter. A special case of the boundary line. No, he even got line. Okay, so Russ got it wrong. Okay, fine. In fact, I'm going to give Russ a wrong. Anyway, you know what? I'm not even going to read this. It's not worth it. That's it for now. Thanks for listening and good night.
This episode of the D6 Generation is brought to you by Lone Wolf Development. Take your game to the next level. And by Conquistador Games, focusing on immersive and thematic games. More details at cqgames.com.
And by Geek Nation Tours. Rise up and join the Geek Nation, touring the world at geeknationtours.com.
And by Game Salute, publishing awesome tabletop games through the Powered by Game Salute program, supporting independent publishers, stores, and the industry at gamesalute.com.
Hello.
Hey, and welcome to episode 158
These numbers are just getting too high.
of the D6 Generation. I'm Russ Wakeland.
I'm Craig Gallant.
I'm Michael Gernes.
Hey, Michael, welcome to the show. Woo.
The best demo giver at Gen Con.
Yes, Fantasy Flight Dude Extraordinaire, as they say. I'm pretty sure it's a job title.
I think that he's probably got that on his desk
Yes.
on a little golden plaque.
So on today's show, we're just excited to have Michael here. So, Michael, what is your official title over there at Fantasy Flight Games? Just so everybody knows.
I am an associate game producer. With Fantasy Flight Games.
Associate, which means awesome. That's what that means. Awesome
No
game
doubt.
producer. And we're going to talk with Michael a little bit later about all the awesome that have been
Not so much.
the games that he is working on, right? So we're going to talk about that later, amongst other things. But first, we should cover what we've been up to lately, Craig, in terms of contests. I think we have a contest about to wrap up here. What's the plan with that?
I believe we do.
Yeah,
Russ, and that would be our Space Saga contest.
Indeed.
Among the what do you have to do, Russ, to enter the this contest?
So first of all, we're giving away just a giant pack
Yeah.
of science fiction themed Stronghold games.
Yeah.
Right.
The
An
grand
entire-
prize is crazy.
Yes. And so to get these, we need a Space Saga intro. Okay.
Oh, okay.
But here's the tricky bit.
I know a guy who could throw those together in no time.
Yeah. Now the tricky bit of this is, so imagine the Star Wars scroll, a long time ago in a galaxy. But the problem is that is not audio, and this is an audio medium. So you have to sort of think of a Space Saga intro themed in some way that gets you excited about games like Among the Stars with the Ambassadors and expanding the Alliance expansion, the Core Worlds game from Stronghold Games with Galactic Orders and Revolution expansion. So the grand prize winner gets all those things. 2 great games with 2 expansions each, right? And then 2 runners-up get additionally either their choice of Among the Stars or Core Worlds. So basically there's going to be 3 big winners in this contest.
Yep.
And all you've got to do is make an audio entry, right, Craig, and send it to contest@thed6generation.com.
Don't send it to info
No.
or to Russ
No.
or to Craig. No.
Contest@the6generation.
Indeed.
So, also, we just finished the Lost Chapters, and Michael was kind enough to join us in Dunkin' Donuts.
Yep.
And Michael, do you remember what we talked about in Dunkin' Donuts?
Yes, myself and my friend James Niffen.
That's right.
Co-designer of Star Wars Armada. We chatted about all things Star Wars.
All the
Right.
Star Wars things. Why it's so cool, why it just infected an entire generation. Good stuff.
Infected's not a great word choice, but yeah.
It's awesome. Well, you can see, like even Stephen Colbert was doing a big Star Wars thing. It was hilarious. It was actually really cool. He did analysis of the new triple lightsaber. Did you see this?
No.
Oh,
So, in the trailer?
I wear that.
And you got to watch it because the best part is the word he invents, which is the menage a sabre, which is awesome. 3 lightsabers. It's fantastic. So you got to watch the bit. It's in defense of how come the lightsaber hilt actually makes sense. Kind of cool.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Very, very, very nerdily awesome. If you're a Star Wars fan, you got to watch it. It's pretty good. Just go to YouTube and look up Stephen Colbert and Star Wars trailer. So make sure you do submit us head over to Lost Chapters, check that out. Craig, how does one listen to a Lost Chapter?
Well, Russ, you can go to our website, the d6generation.com, and look for the little Charlie cherub guy in the right-hand margin. Click on that, and it'll bring you to options. Mm-hmm. Or you could be a patron on patreon.com, and you will get, as long as you are donating $2 or more per episode, you will get the backlog, anything you request, and all of the latest Lost Chapters gratis.
Yeah. And our amazing patrons have got us up to 463, Craig.
It's crazy.
Trying to hit 500 by the end of the year. So close. You guys are amazing.
Close.
You guys are amazing.
Close.
I cannot believe it. We still are in awe and humbled by all the great support. So thank you guys out there for
kind of crazy. I'm not convinced most of those people haven't made some sort of mistake.
No, they're fantastic. So
yeah, absolutely.
But what's the time now for, Craig?
Right about now, it's probably, because you said that, a time for Achievements in Gaming.
It certainly is. And Achievements in Gaming is brought to us by all of our great patrons over at Patreon. And I'd like to do a special shout out this week. It's almost been a year now that we have been doing Patreon. And I just want to do a special thanks to our very first 10 patrons. You guys are fantastic. And all 10 of you are still supporting the show. Can't believe this. Our very first, Stuart Platt, Benjamin Gaid, Alan, Adam Reeve, Ray Greenlee, Adam Pitzer, John Matthews, Derek Stanley, Uko Kraito. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. You guys are fantastic. You've been with us since the early days, right in the beginning of January last year. We really, really appreciate it. And many more right behind you. Too many of you to the list. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much to our patrons. You are making it possible for us to do so many things, and we really appreciate it. So thanks again. So this part of the show, of course, we like to talk about games we've been playing lately, and it's only fair if we let Michael go first. Michael, what kind of sort of pulp games, board games, RPGs, things like that have you been playing lately?
Right. Well, I actually last evening I was playing Force and Destiny, the beta version, with a group of friends. Our upcoming Force Sensitives RPG.
See, now this is awesome. So, can you give us any little tidbits about what makes it just that much cooler?
Well, you get to use the Force, which is pretty sweet. You get to swing lightsabers.
Is there a Menage a Sabra in there?
My character has a blue lightsaber.
All right,
a plumble blue lightsaber, but the crystal I have was the core of a holocron.
Oh, cool!
That's how my saber was made.
Cool.
Well, that's
are there any in-game effects of the color of your saber?
No, I think that since I am not the game master, I think for the most part it's a cosmetic thing, but there are definitely things you can do to your lightsaber to make it that much sweeter.
Cool, nice. You got to have a tricked out lightsaber. So playing some Star Wars RPG. What else have you been playing?
Last week I played a board game called Fire in the Lake.
Ooh.
Which is a very in-depth simulation of the Vietnam War.
Wow.
Actually, I'm a history person. A bunch of friends wanted to try this game, and we've given it a couple plays, and it's pretty fun. I mean, it's a heavy subject matter, obviously, but it's a very interesting game.
Now, is this a squad based game? Is it more like a higher level strategic game, or what's it look like?
The latter. It's very much an asymmetrical simulation of each of the four parties to the war: the United States, North Vietnam, the Viet Cong movement, and the South Vietnamese government. Mm-hmm. And each, there's four players. You're each representing one of those factions, everybody has their own win condition, but you're in two loose coalitions. So the United States and Arvin want to work together to a certain point, and North Vietnam and the National Front want to work together. And it's the coin series, I believe, from GMT. Mm-hmm. And so you're basically directing your faction's overall strategy in the war.
Cool. Sounds pretty neat. And is this a new game, or has it been on a while? Or
I think it has come out this year.
Okay.
It's one of my friends who owns it.
Yeah.
And my friend Adam, and I believe it's relatively recent, and it's a pretty interesting game. Having studied, the history of the Vietnam War and have some relatives in it, it's an interesting subject for a game, and it feels really academic. Mm-hmm. Like it's a very, I think it captures what the different parties wanted as far as what their strategic goals were.
Nice. That sounds pretty awesome. Very cool. So what a swing. So you've gone from, space opera, Star Wars RPG to meaty, historically themed Vietnam War games. What else are you playing? That's quite the gamut, by the way.
I got to go to Cincinnati recently and hang out with my best friend, and we got to sit down and play some Warhammer Disc Wars.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
We're big fans of the Disc Wars. So as one of the guys who worked on Disc Wars, which is the best faction?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like asking if you have a favorite child.
Yeah, but you got to answer it. Go ahead. Which one's best?
Wow. Wow.
I really enjoy the Vampire Count.
All right. Cool.
As wackiest. But yeah. I think my favorite to play might be the High Elves.
Nice. I think that's one of my tops as well.
See, I'm going to play Geekly McNerdigan here and say wrong. The correct answer is Lizardmen, and they need more guys. So, just because that's my favorite army in Warhammer Fantasy. But actually, Disc Wars is so much fun. It so accurately grabs all the different factions.
Oh, it's great.
And it's basically a war game in your pocket almost. I mean, it's just you carry around all four while
it
six
definitely
factions.
Scratches that Warhammer itch without spending $1 billion and taking an hour and a half to set up.
Right, exactly.
Which is, don't email me. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with Warhammer Fantasy Battles.
Right.
Just saying.
Emails to Craig at the D6G.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's awesome. So what else are you playing?
Aside from that, I'm actually, speaking of Warhammer, I'm in an ongoing Mordheim campaign.
Old school.
There you go.
And that is a lot of fun. That's been a lot of incentive for me to move ahead with my very slowly progressing Skaven army.
Oh, there you go.
And paint some more models.
Yeah, unless you've got some sort of mental illness, most Skaven armies are slowly progressing.
Right.
If coming at it from a percentage, anyway.
Sure, there's a lot of models. Skaven's a fantastic army. They're beautiful models, but man, it's a lot of painting.
That is a lot
of rats. Although they paint it reasonably easy until dry brushing. You got furry Skaven.
Unless you want to take a little time, have a little skill. Make it look good.
Fair enough.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's been a lot of fun. I have some friends who have some beautiful urban terrain that they made for Mordheim, and that we get together and we play on that, and it's pretty neat.
Awesome.
Nice. So very cool. So, what else?
You're coming across like an interrogator, Russ.
No, he's got lots of. Look at all this. I mean, he's gone from. I love the gamut here. Board games, role playing games, miniature war games. Michael, you're one of us. What don't you play? Seriously.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know the drill. A long-time listener, and I actually
and questionable taste on top of everything else.
Questionable. I don't know. That remains to be seen. But I did. I've also been playing a D&D campaign with some friends.
Cool.
D&D.
Fifth edition or second edition?
Yep. Fifth, 5.
Oh, I'm loving it. What do you think of 5? How you liking 5e?
I really like it.
Yeah.
I've been playing D&D since I was pretty young, or at least around it, and feel like I like it.
Cool.
It's hard to articulate. I dig the rules, and I dig the way that the book reads.
Yeah. I have the same reaction. It's like it's hard to articulate why I think it's like my favorite edition in forever. It's because it feels like what D&D is supposed to feel like is the only way I can say it. I don't know how else to articulate it, but yeah, I agree. It's awesome. Cool. So I feel like there's more though. I feel like, Michael, is there anything else, or is that pretty much? I'm just sensing it.
I'd say my last achievement in gaming lately is I downloaded and have been playing the Battlelore Command.
Oh yeah,
on Android, and I really enjoyed that. I played a fair amount of it this last weekend. It's a very pretty game, and it captures Battlelore, and it's a lot of fun.
It really is. I just got that the other day too, and I have to say it's awesome. It's one of those, and I have it on iOS, and it's one of those single app purchases. You buy it once, and you get it on your iPad, on your iPhone, and it looks, like you said, it looks great. It's one of those better looking 3D games you get on your phone that you almost could be like, wow, this could have been a console game or a PC game. Looks fantastic, and it really does nail Battlelore. And there's even a nice little story there, and you know the models, all you know, the modeling looks great, and it's got good music and voices. It's just really, it's nice. It's very nice.
Yeah, it sounds like you're enjoying it as well.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, I love the production value, and I'm just loving and it nailed like you said, nailed the mechanics. So I'm really enjoying it. I think it's good. It's funny what people get concerned about with pricing for iOS games. It's like, you know, I don't remember what the price is, if it's $9 or $12, but like, oh, I gotta pay $12. That's super expensive. I come from a generation when we paid $60 a video game, you know, so $12 for a great game you can play all the time wherever you are is a great price. So I think it's a really good deal.
Yeah, I'm enjoying that, and it has gotten me away from playing Tales of Honor, which was my previous.
That's a good game too.
Most recently was that. I actually discovered that when you guys mentioned that on here. Mm-hmm. That was what prompted me, because I am an Honor Harrington fan, and I wanted to try that game. It's a lot of fun.
It is. It is. Yeah. So, Craig, how about you? What have you been playing lately, man?
What have I been playing lately? Well, it's funny you should ask that, Ross. We went over to Joe's a couple of weeks ago and just had an afternoon thing. And my son has not been old enough to sort of hang out with the other bigger kids, so I've never been able to take advantage of these little gatherings. And he's old enough now. He goes over and he has a great time with all the other kids. And we played Hex.
Oh, nice.
At Joe's. So that was nice. That came out for the first time in a long time. And then this was while I was doing the play, so I wasn't gaming a lot. We have these things called advisories every other week where you're supposed to gather with 10 students that you don't have in any of your classes or probably won't have in any of your classes, and you're supposed to bond with them. And so they have, other than their guidance counselor, they have somebody else, some other adult. And it's mostly bunk. It's mostly there to check off a box in the, bureaucracy, checklist.
Well, achievement for that.
Yeah, exactly. But this year I've just kind of been like, you know what? They're not getting anything out of it anyway. So every time we can get away with it, we're going to play a game.
There you go.
And they have themes every meeting session. And the meeting session a few weeks ago was goal setting. And I had just picked up Tiny Epic Kingdoms. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, a 4X and goal setting. And so I taught an entire room full of, well, not an entire room, but it's like 10 students, and they run the social gamut. And I taught them Tiny Epic Kingdoms in our little 20-minute session. And we even got a couple turns through, and they were fascinated. They loved it. It was great. So that was fun. And then the play was over. The play is over now. And I got to play Tiny Epic Kingdoms for a second and a third time last Tuesday. I played just one-on-one with Pete, and he had the shapeshifters, and it was awesome because he churned through 4 of the races before the end of the game. So we got to see how a bunch of different, the base game, if you didn't get into the Kickstarter, I don't know many of the differences, but the base game I think it cost me $19. So around $20. It comes with 13 races, which is crazy.
Yep.
And a bunch of different territories, and it's a great game, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it in the not so distant future. So that was fun. Then I played again with Rafe and Jeremy and Matt, which was awesome because I haven't played with Rafe in forever. Actually, I haven't played with any of these guys in forever. I had a blast. And then last night, Dave, Russ, and our friend Mike played, and that was a blast also because I realized a truism that I had never put together before. Mm-hmm. Within our group, it is terrible for Russ to be teaching you how to play a game.
Yes.
Because he will forget one element, and it'll probably be how to win.
Right.
And then when he wins, he goes, "Oh, guys, I'm sorry. I mean, I thought it was pretty self-explanatory." But anyway, but it is almost equally bad to try to teach a game that Russ knows and is playing with you, because every little mistake you make, oh, actually, it's not like that. Oh, actually, and with his Jedi mind tricks, even when you're right, he can convince you that you said it wrong. So, and when you're playing with Russ and Dave at the same time, it's terrible because one can irritate me all day long, and the other one has some strange witch power that totally destroys any luck I have. So, playing them, and they giggle maniacally when either of them sees the other power in action.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know either. So, but it was a blast. We had an absolute. I don't know about Russ. I had an absolute blast.
It was great. I had a good time.
Russ and I were tied for last place. So how bad can that be?
I really like that game a lot. It's a lot of fun. We definitely have to review that.
I love it because it's so fast that even if you're having a frustrating game, unlike most Euro games, you don't still have an hour and a half or 2.5 hours to churn through. It's done in 20 to 30 minutes and you can play again another game. It's great. Yeah. Played Ninja Dice a bunch of times last week with a bunch of the different guys. Last night I played it again. Can't remember with whom. Luchador Mexican Wrestling Dice 2nd edition came, and I was super excited, and it's awesome. It doesn't really change the game any. What it does is add elements to the game, like a battle royale free-for-all mode. And every character gets like special abilities. So it's very cool. Now they're differentiated. In the 1st edition, they weren't differentiated. And it comes with a cardboard wrestling ring, and it comes with cardboard cutouts of all of the wrestlers. It was great. It's awesome. This is all jumbled up time-wise, but when the play was going on, one of my students, the captain of the football team, actually, I taught him how to play Hex last year, and he went out and returned sold all of his Pokemon cards from when he was younger and traded it all in for Hex. So I played Hex with the whole cast, and they were playing 2 or 3 times a day to kind of relax and loosen up before getting ready for the play. So that was awesome. And I had my first Dungeons and Dragons session since 2nd edition with the Low Jog with Joe, John, and Pete, who I found out how to get them to come over and play games, because when I don't really have something to lure them, everybody's plans change at the last minute. Nobody shows up. But mention you'd be interested in playing D&D with them, and they fast tracked it, and we met and played 3 weeks before we were supposed to.
Nice.
So that was intriguing. So
now, what did you your first 5e session?
First anything above 2 session. Yeah.
Nice. What'd you think?
I will say this, and I know that I'm in the minority on some of this stuff, but I will say this is probably one of the worst organized role-playing game rule books that I've ever encountered, the player's handbook. I think that it is underscored because by the index, which is atrocious. I can't now. Let's get half the entries in the index point you to another entry in the index without giving you a page number. There's no reason you can't include 3 more characters or 2 or 1 and give the page number where go see. I want to do background, or I want to do soldier, and it says see background, and it couldn't say see background page 75 or whatever. Right. That's really unfortunate.
The index is weak sauce. I'll give you that.
The index is awful. It's terrible as an in-game resource. And the organization, it doesn't nice and easy step by step give you chapter by chapter what you're doing. Character creation was a nightmare for me. I hated it, and I have not hated character creation in a long, long time.
Really? I thought it'd be awesome.
It was awful. I think it's overly complicated. It seems to me to be archaic.
Really?
It's clunky. This is going to affect this, and this. This is going to affect this, and this. And oh, by the way, this, and this are all in different parts of the book. So I really thought it was weakly organized, further impacted by a very, very, very pathetic index. So I'm telling you how I felt without easing the blow, because I went into the session going, I'm not going to like it. It's going to stink. And wow, was I wrong? And the character creation had nothing in common with the actual gameplay, which was intuitive, fast, fun. So now looking back, I have to say, I still found the character generation painful, but once it got into the actual gameplay, all of those different things you have to do they were really well executed and, like I said, intuitive and really fun, and the game flowed. And of course, I mean, your brother is amazing as a GM. He's got a very good sense of timing. So in the not so expansive time we did a lot. We had some fun stuff going on. So I would say that it's character generation, if you know the book better than I do anyway, is probably not as painful as it was to me, and probably not as much of a barrier to entry as it almost was to me. So I loved playing the game. And to all of you who asked why I would ever get caverns, we played with the Dwarven Forge caverns, and they looked awesome.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Cheers for that.
Yeah. So that's me.
Well, I'm sorry I had trouble with it.
What about you, Russ?
Well,
you don't have to apologize. You had nothing to do with the rule book.
I've also been playing lots of 5e and with my family, and I have to tell this little story. So we're playing. Thanks to Wizards of the Coast, they sent me Rise of Tiamat, which is the second book in the campaign we're playing. So I've got the first one, which is the dragon one, the Horde of the Dragon there, whatever it is, and we've been playing through that with my kids and my niece and nephew and my brother John, and I'm DMing that. Then Wizards sent us Rise of Tiamat, so I've been reading through that, and that looks awesome. They also sent us a copy of the DMG, so I'm like, woohoo! So
wow.
But then I bought my own anyway, because we'll probably give those away. But it is fantastic. I love the new DMG, just came out. It's really, really cool. But I have to share this story of party drama. So we've been playing along. The party just hit 4th level. And my oldest daughter, since the beginning, she's playing a tiefling. And she started out as a tiefling bard. And since the very, very beginning, she wrote this huge, elaborate backstory. And she read the whole book. And she's like, Dad, when I get to 4th level, I want to have had this thing with demons that are threatening my homeworld where my tiefling family lives. And so I've made this pact with the demon that I'm going to go to the prime material plane. And when I turn 21, I'm going to summon the demon to the prime material plane so he can wipe out the prime material plane. And that way I can go back home and my family's safe, because otherwise he's going to wipe out where my family lives. So she's got this whole thing. And, and it's just kind of the grandiose end of the world thing. But, she's 12, so you got to work with it. And so anyway, so I'm like, okay, we'll figure this out. So she's playing a bard. Now, in the party, there's her as a tiefling bard, and then there's a ranger, a mysterious ranger, my niece, my youngest daughter, Kit, who is playing a druid, and then my nephew's playing a paladin. So at 4th level, she wants to switch over and become this a warlock, because she gets possessed by the demon and is getting closer to her age of having to deal with it. So 4th level comes. So I do this interesting scene. You can't just have someone, change classes out of the blue. And by the way, multi-class I think is brilliant in 5th edition. So I'm like, okay, we'll switch her over. So at night, like, she gets attacked by demons in her dream, and she wakes up and there's all these closets all over her, but they're all like centipedes and bats, and they're eating her, drinking her blood, and basically, bonding, forming a blood bond with the demon. She's like freaking out, brushing them off, and so they fight off all the closets, and they're like, and all of a sudden, while they're fighting, she starts using some of her new powers. So she's like, I cast my new spell, and fire shit. And they're all like, how is she doing? And they all figure out, of course, she's a warlock. So I fully expect the paladin to flip out. And he does. So the paladin's like, my nephew's awesome. He's like, what? You're a warlock? You're consorting with demons? What is? And then my niece turns around, the ranger, right? She goes, oh, I speak Abyssal. And she starts chatting with her and chatting with the demons as they're fighting them. And the paladin's like, wait, how does a ranger raised by wolves speak Abyssal? And she's like, well, it's a long story. I don't really want to share it. He's like, I no longer trust you, Abyssal Talker. And the rest of the day, she's like trying to do something. He's like, I won't look at you, Abyssal Talker. I won't look at you. It's hilarious. So I'm loving the party drama now with the kids. It's fantastic. So it's been a lot of fun.
Very cool.
And because I am apparently addicted to dungeon crawling experiences, in addition to D&D, I've now gotten involved with a Pathfinder card game campaign that we're playing with my former Descent crew. Our Descent crew had to take a break because one of our members got sidetracked. So playing the Pathfinder card game, having a lot of fun with that. That's a great little game. And you can play a quick hour, play a session, and then put it away and keep all your decks sorted and play some more and have that little leveling up feeling. It's pretty nice. So I'm enjoying that. And play lots of Tiny Epic Kingdoms. I have to give a shout out to listener Chaz, Craig.
Yes,
So,
of course.
from Prague. Chaz was visiting New England, and he was kind enough, while he was visiting from Prague, he was kind enough to put a stop at Myriad Games on a Tuesday on his list. And so he swung by and said hello, and fortunately Craig had to play, so he couldn't be there. But I was there, and we were able to play a few games of Tiny Epic Kingdoms and also some games of Camel Up. Which, have you played Camel Up, Craig?
I have not.
You have not. Michael, have you played Camel Up?
No. What is Camel Up?
So Camel Up came out at Gen Con. It is a camel racing game. But here's the thing. You don't actually race the camels. The camels race themselves. It comes with this really cool components. There's this cardboard pyramid where there's colored dice in it, and you invert the pyramid and push a cardboard slider on the side, and it drops out one die. And the color of the die matches several of different colored camel meeples that are racing around the track. And so you roll the die, and it shows you how many spaces this particular camel moves. So one turn, the green camel moves. The next turn, the yellow camel moves. And sort of the interesting mechanic is that when the camels land on the same spaces they share, you stack the camels up, which informs how they move around. But the big deal here is you're not really hoping your color wins necessarily. You're actually betting on the camels like a horse race. So as you play, you start to predict and bet who's going to come in second, who's going to come in third, who's going to win place or show, who's going to come in last. Really interesting mechanics, very fun to play, very fast. The components are really off the charts, cool looking. I mean, the pyramid's really neat. The wooden camels are really high quality. All the card stock's really nice. It's a Z-Man game, but you'd think it was a Fantasy Flight game because the components are just fantastic. So really good stuff. Also playing Hyperborea. Have you guys heard of this game?
No. No, I mean from you.
Yes. So this is sort of some brand new hotness, and it is a 4X game, and it's a fantasy themed 4X game. And what most people are comparing it to, they're saying it's like Eclipse but fantasy. And I think that's a reasonable comparison because it's Euro-driven mechanics. It's a very Euro-feeling game, but it's a 4X game, which is not a Euro thing. And it's got really themed factions, and you got up to 6 players, but you can play 2 players just fine. You got nice plastic. Each different faction has different models. There's like the fantasy barbarians and the fantasy wood elves and the fantasy sorceresses. But what's interesting about it is you've heard of deck building games. And you've heard of dice building games. This is a bag building game. So what drives your economy here is cubes, which is again another comparison to Eclipse. But instead of having a static number of cubes, what happens is you start off with a different number of cubes, and they go into a bag. Each player has their own bag. Each turn, you pull out some number of cubes from your bag, and then you've got a cardboard thing in front of you, like a station. And where you put the cubes, you have to put certain combinations of cubes in certain spots to generate actions you can do. So, for example, like a green cube and a red cube means you get to move a guy once and do an attack action. If you do a green cube and any other cube, you can just move a guy twice. Things like that. And some of them generate more resources. And so your cubes are basically your economy, and you can basically buy more cubes from the market of certain colors or basically generate them and put them into your bag. So you can make your bag mostly green cubes, which gives you better movement, different colors. It's really interesting mechanic. It's really interesting way you play. Really easy to teach, but a lot of depth to it. Like a typical Euro, lots of choices to make. I'm digging it. The components are great. Everybody who's played it so far is really enjoying it. And what I like about it a lot is it plays pretty quick. You can play the short version of the game, even with 6 players and with teaching the rules. We got done in an hour and a half, but I think that could be an hour easy. A 6-player 4X game in an hour is pretty impressive. Yeah. So, and it feels good, though. You feel like you've accomplished something. It doesn't feel too short. So I really like it. It's definitely not the complexity of Rune Wars, which I love Rune Wars, but Rune Wars, you've got like all these different kinds of unit types and everything else. This doesn't have that. Everybody's the same kind of unit. Combat's trivial. Basically, you get there, you do an attack, you kill a guy. There's no dice rolling or anything. So definitely more Euro feeling that way, but it's not quite as simple as Tiny Epic Kingdoms. There's more meat there for you, a longer experience. So I'm really liking it. It's a good game. And then, before we go too long, I'm just going to say also our friend Chris Flores had his big games day.
Yeah.
And so just to work through it real quick, we played some Tiny Epic Kingdoms. We played Camel Up, King of Tokyo, Sushi Go, Level 7 Invasion, a lot of fun there, and Among the Stars. So that was all the...
You got a lot of games there.
I guess so. It feels like it's been a while since we recorded, so maybe that's...
power
outage, Thanksgiving, hello, it took us, anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So modeling. Now, Michael, have you doing any modeling lately?
Yeah. Yeah, when I was talking about my Mordheim, my Warband / Skaven army, I've been slowly but surely working on that, and I've been I decided to convert my a unit of gutter runners and give them cloaks and capes made out of green stuff.
Oh,
So I've been working on that.
Nice.
And basically, I want to make them look like they're all wearing ghillie suits.
Cool.
Like brush all over the outside.
Yep.
So been working on that project.
Very
That's
nice.
cool.
Very cool. Well, sadly, I've been doing no modeling, which is a shame. Too many other games and other things. But Craig, it looks like you've been doing a little work.
Well, it's all I can do pretty much during the play. So I'm putting the finishing touches on the second. My brain has just stopped functioning.
There's
these last
rhinos
few
in
days.
it. There's rhinos in there.
Yeah, there's rhinos. The pre-heresy Sons of Horus that
There
I'm
you go.
doing. The second contingent of that. So 2 rhinos, 2 drop pods, 3 jet bikes, 2 heroes, and 1 dreadnought. Almost all kit bashed to make them as cheap as humanly possible. And I was almost done with those when this Dungeons and Dragons thing came sailing out of the blue. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be really cool if I have some caverns to play with. And so I put my Marines aside, which is not a good sign because God knows now if I'll ever get back to them. And I started cranking out the Dwarven Forge cavern sets. So I did all 3 of my complete sets. I did 1 set of stalagmites, which is a whole bunch of stalagmites and little geyser mouths, and 2 full sets of water features, which are shorelines and curves and open water and little like little cavern mouths that the rivers come out of. Some awesome stuff. But man, is this stuff more time sensitive or time sucking than the dungeon stuff was. This stuff is taking me at least twice as long. So I had all kinds of grand schemes, and all I did was barely finish those 6 sets that I just talked about. So
Nice.
but that is a lot of modeling. It's a lot more modeling than it sounds. Damn it.
It sounds like a lot to me.
Yeah.
What about other geeky goodness there, Michael? What have you been watching for shows, reading for books, that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, I just finished with books. I just finished the Dresden Files novel Changes.
Nice.
On audio, and it lives up to the title. So
yes, it does.
I don't want to spoil it for anybody out there who's a Dresden Files fan and hasn't read it, but it's pretty intense.
Yep.
So
Nice. I'm still way behind on my Dresden. I got to catch up on that. I feel bad about that. So
that's kind of my favorite ongoing fiction series right now.
Cool.
And so I read that, and I've been watching a lot of Flash and Arrow.
Ooh, there you go.
There you go.
Combo pack.
Right. So which do you like better? Are you more of an Arrow guy or a Flash guy? Both equal?
That's it's really interesting you say that, because I'm actually trying to decide, because I've been watching Arrow for 2.3 seasons now, and I really like that show a lot. It's my favorite. It's been my favorite live action superhero show of recent years, and I'm really liking Flash. Like it feels like a different kind of show. It feels like they both capture their character and both provide a different thing. And the more I watch Flash, like the more solid it's getting.
Cool. I've not gotten into Flash. I think I need to. Craig, have you watched a lot of Flash yet?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I've been told by many people that it's better than the Arrow, but the Arrow for me is sort of a guilty pleasure, and now I have one of those, so I don't really feel any urge to fall into the Flash. And the competition for recording time for our TiVo is
intense.
Intense, yes. So I'm just gonna deal with it. If I catch up with everything I'm watching, which is highly unlikely with the serious lack of TV watching time that I have, then the Arrow is probably in the top 3 of what I plan on checking out if I ever have the time.
Nice.
Oh, your brother was telling me that he hated it, so I was like, oh.
Yeah, he didn't like it much, but he's in the minority there. A lot of people like it.
Yeah, but usually when there's something like everybody's drooling over it, and then your brother's like, yeah, I didn't like it. Usually I end up not liking it. So the push is lessened even more from that.
Anything else, Michael?
I wait to see Interstellar recently.
Ooh. Yeah, what'd you think? It's getting rave reviews. What was your opinion?
I really liked it.
Yeah.
It's like something I don't want to talk about it too specifically.
Yeah.
For those who are yet to see it. But I grew up watching 2001, and that was kind of the gold standard of space movies, or like hard sci-fi space movies. And it's funny. It's kind of like Interstellar is like, it felt a lot like 2000, like a lot of things about 2001, but done the Christopher Nolan way. And I really dug it for that reason. There's a lot of, and where 2001 is kind of a movie about isolation, maybe. Interstellar is definitely about relationships. I liked that a lot.
Well, that sounds, now you got me intrigued. Now I got to check this out. I know I have a couple friends who I really trust their opinions, and they have been raving about Interstellar. So I do want to check it out. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Cool.
You guys?
Nice. Craig, what about you, man?
Let's see. Because of our little session in Dunkin' Donuts last time.
Oh, yes.
I have inset bookshelves around two walls of the pub, and it just so happens that all of the Star Wars books are right over my head. So I literally I signed off as soon as we finished the Lost chapter, stood up, turned around, and plucked Shadows of the Empire right off the shelf. Went upstairs, logged into the computer, first I went to, because I'm still living like 3 years ago, I went to eBay, and I was like, oh, the graphic novel, Shadows of the Empire, $15, I don't know. And then I went, well, let's check out Amazon. $6 with shipping. So who couldn't do that? So I jumped on that, and I started reading Shadows of the Empire, and sadly it felt more like some of those books you read in high school that don't quite live up to your, like almost every Dungeons and Dragons book from the 80s.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And so that was that. It was decent. I don't want to totally slam it. It just didn't live up to my memory because I was so desperate for anything Star Wars in 1996 that I was like, oh, it's great. And I don't know about great. But the graphic novel was actively not great. So I was very disappointed in that. And I'm not a big graphic novel fan. So I'm very, my standards for graphic novels are very high. But I couldn't understand what was going on in half the panels, and so it was an odd thing, and I'm glad it cost me $6. I'm reading, I'm actually reading on my Kindle the latest Terry Pratchett novel in the Discworld series, which is Raising Steam, which is really cool because it's sort of like steampunk meets the Discworld. I'm actually listening to, against Russ's Jedi mind tricks, I'm listening to Sibylla Byrne, the latest Expanse novel by James S.A. Corey, and it is a different narrator, but it almost feels like he's trying to emulate the first narrator.
Is it working?
It is for the most part. Yeah, he's a little slower in delivery, and some of the characters are slightly different, but it really does seem like he's trying to do imitations of the other narrator's version of these characters. And a lot has happened. Yeah. And I'm not even halfway through.
Wow.
I keep thinking I've got to only have a couple hours left, but I've still got over 11 hours to go. So either it's a bad sign and it just feels like it's taking forever, or it's really cool because these two guys are packing a lot of stuff into this novel. It's a little bit, it took a lot of challenging choices because, Holden and the crew of the Rocinante are, I won't say like side characters in this one, but there are two other groups of characters that are, generally speaking, at least through the first part of the book, much more integral to the story that's developing.
Yep.
But I don't dislike it at all. I don't think I like it as much as the first three, mainly probably because it feels like a different kind of novel because of the role that they end up taking. But I am enjoying it, and I have been known to make excuses to take a trip in my car just so I could read it or listen. I read the D&D Player's Handbook, and we don't have to go any more into that. I read the Firefly role-playing game manual. It's a giant book. And I translated all of our Serenity RPG characters from our old play-by-email campaign. So as soon as we get some free time and I can loop you over here,
all right, nice.
Where I'm like chained to the ground every Sunday night, I think it's going to be neat. And you've already played, so you know it's a cool system.
Yeah, right.
But I think I'll be able to. The other guys have all said they want to do it too, so it should be cool. And then I got called out on Twitter.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And basically because Dark Heresy, The Forgotten Gods campaign book just came out.
Yes.
And I had a blast working on that with all the guys at Fantasy Flight. And it was my biggest assignment with Fantasy Flight. I did all of the bestiary art entries and created some stuff, and it was a lot of fun.
Very cool.
And I enjoyed it, and it just released, and everything was coming out, and all the guys at FFG were tweeting that it was fun, and it was a good time, and we're all proud of the book. And then I can't remember who it was. I apologize, but somebody called me out like, "Can you get Craig to talk more about his work with Fantasy Flight? Because he never mentions it." And I was like, "That's not true." And then I realized that I worked on this book a year and a half ago.
Right.
So while I was working on it, I was saying things like, "Oh, I've got a really cool FFG assignment. It's really neat. I'm really enjoying it, but I can't talk about it because, they like to keep, as every company does, they like to keep things under wraps. So, part of the deal is you don't talk about the book any more than in very, very vague generalizations. So go back a year and a half ago and listen to me go, "Oh yeah, I can't wait to be able to talk about this." So I'm talking about it now. It's awesome. It's a really cool campaign. And just so I can encompass the whole thing, Black Crusade, Tomb of Decay came out a little while ago, and I worked on that also, and it was fun, and you should check it out, especially if you like Nurgle or you're feeling a bit under the weather. That's me.
Nurgle fans.
And what about Nurgle for the sneeze? So what about you, Russ?
I'm trying to bring this home. We got a giant amount of achievements today, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So
it's been a while.
I've been playing. So my birthday's in early November, and so I got, as usual, a giant pile of video games. That's pretty much what I ask for all the time because all the video games come out about then for the Christmas season. So I figure I'll just put them on my birthday list. So I got Sunset Overdrive, which I had a blast with. The Sunset Overdrive basically is a third-person shooter. The deal here is it's a survival, but instead of zombies, a rogue soda manufacturer, energy drink manufacturer, has created a new energy drink that when you drink it, you mutate into some kind of creature. And so it's mutants running around the town, which is essentially very zombie-like. But the deal is you're fighting them all, and you can slide around you can basically slide on rails and things and move really quickly. So you're fighting, but you're moving all the time. So it's a very dynamic game. And you run into these various factions who are left in the city to fight these crazy mutant things. And it has some of the best writing, humor-filled writing that I've experienced in a video game in a very, very long time.
The commercial is funny.
With the commercial funny, but the whole thing. So there's, at one point, you run, and no spoilers, but you run into a group of LARPers. And the thing about the LARPers is that since the apocalypse, they have come to believe that where they pretend to be is actually where they are. So they all truly believe, like the king of the LARPers, the SCA guy, for example, thinks I am the king. And so, and the lines are fantastic. There's one line in the game where you meet up with these Latino ladies who are also another gang. And so at some point you're working together. The LARPers are one and the other. And she's like, you get ready to make a plan. And all of a sudden the king starts saying, we shall go forth, and you, young lady, you shall, walk in verily, and you shall do this. She says, stop narrating everything I'm going to do. You're not the DM of me. That was fantastic. And the whole thing, the writing's great. And there's actually mechanics in the game just for the jokes. Like, there's actually a bard cam there's a whole mechanic to create the bard cam and actually make it work. And all it does is for the joke. There's actually no gameplay reason for it to work or even exist. Really, really great game. Fun mechanics, fun game, a lot of fun, and just the lines and the writing are fantastic. And it was just awesome. A lot of fun.
Cool.
So solve that. Blast right through that thing. There's a lot of side quests, so you can make it take a long time. I just went right through the main story because it was so funny. Then got Assassin's Creed Unity and Dragon Age Inquisition at nearly the same time. I have no idea what Assassin's Creed Unity is like or how good it is or anything. I know there's been some rumors about it being bad, but I haven't really even got it on the screen because Dragon Age Inquisition is so good. Dragon Age Inquisition is possibly the best RPG I've ever played on a computer or an electronic device. Fantastic. So Dragon Age Origins, the first one. And by the way, for those who don't know, Dragon Age is by the company BioWare. These are the same guys who made Knights of the Old Republic and the same guys who made Mass Effect. They made Dragon Age Origins several years ago, which was critically acclaimed. They came out with Dragon Age 2, a lot of people were disappointed in because it was a much smaller scope and didn't feel like you could do as much. Dragon Age 3 is like a giant apology for Dragon Age 2, and it is just awesome. It is so good. Great writing, great characters. You know, they got the whole BioWare thing where as the party grows, they have opinions about you, they get mad at you, you can lose party members, the whole thing. Really great game, great mechanics, just a lot of fun. Cannot say enough good things. I don't think I can oversell it. It's just a great game. Go check out Dragon Age Inquisition. Available on every platform known to man. And Craig, we were talking about TV shows last episode with Stephen Bonacore, and Constantine was a show I think we both talked about. Loving Constantine. Yeah. My wife and I love it. I think it just got canceled.
It didn't get canceled. It just got stopped for the season.
It got stopped for the season.
It didn't get picked up for the second half of its first season. Oh. That doesn't necessarily mean it got canceled.
Hopefully it's back, because Nicole's now telling me it's probably coming back.
It's not coming back.
It's not coming back?
No, they don't bring things back after they announced that we will be showing the last 3 episodes of the first half of the season.
Show is so good.
And so their plan might be to try to revamp it and bring it back next year, but it's probably they'll talk about it in an office for half an hour and then decide that it's not worth the money.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic. So I'm really bummed. Did you see Constantine, Michael?
Yeah, I've also been watching that. I've been liking it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, me too.
I've been really liking it. It's very dark. I mean, it's definitely there's parts you got to watch a silly comedy afterwards because you can't go to bed. Right. But it's dark comedy. There's also nice dark humor built in around all the really, really dark stuff that happens.
Yeah.
Last episode was really tough because it was possessed kids. And the problem now that I'm a parent, I'm like useless whenever a show has any kids in danger. I'm like, oh my God. I just freak out. So,
yeah.
So anyway, so that was great. And what's sad is going away, but a great show. If you haven't seen it yet, try to catch it before it goes away. And then also, books we're reading. I'm listening to Rise of Koban. So Craig, the 3rd Koban book is now out.
How is it?
Really enjoying it a lot. Armor.
How's the schlep reading it? Did he get any better?
Summerer still doing a great job, actually.
Eric Summerer is awesome.
He is awesome. And Power Armor now. All I'm saying, Power Armor. Hello. Really good, great stuff. It's same writing styles before, so there's some nuances to the writing style I am not totally thrilled with, but it doesn't matter because the storytelling and how he does the macro story and then the micro story I think is just really well done, and it's such a fascinating study of genetics and how much you can modify people and still keep them human and all kinds of cool stuff going on there. So really great book.
Some deep stuff with some awesome action.
There really is, and great action now. This book's got a lot of that too, chock full of it. Yeah. So it's good hard sci-fi. I feel like this way. And then finished Monster Hunters International. First book. First book. There's like a gajillion books. Finished the first one. Larry Correa, love him, love his books. Yep. I'm going to finish Rise of Koban and then go back to the second Monster Hunters book. So.
There you go.
And then we're listening to this on Audible, Craig. Are you listening on Audible also?
I am listening to it on Audible, Russ. Now tell me, if our listeners out there wanted, say, to get a completely free, no strings attached Audible book, what would they do?
Well, you'd head over to the D6generation.com, and then you would click on the Audible link on the right-hand side. And that'll take you to a fantastic deal from our friends at Audible. How this deal works is you get free 30-day trial of Audible, which means you get a free credit, which gives you pretty much any book you want from the Audible library. Some of these books, like Rise of Kobans, 30 hours of listening, 1 credit. You know, Game of Thrones, 1 credit. No,
42 hours.
42
Is it
hours.
1 credit?
I think it's back to I think it's back to 1 credit now.
Nice.
In any case, and these books are yours to keep, even if you decide to cancel and not pay a dime. But but the great thing also is during those 30 days, any sales that come along are fantastic. Like if you're able to get into Audible on Black Friday, you scored major books for dirt cheap.
That's where the membership really shines.
It's like $5. So audiobook, those things are like $30-40 normally. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely.
So definitely check out Audible. Please do. You help support the show, and you're going to get a great service there. You're going to be really pleased with it. So, what do you think, Michael? Any last achievements you want to jump in with, or are you good now?
Wow, that's a lot of achievement. You know, I don't know if you guys like a lot of old movies, like classic movies.
Yeah.
I rewatched The Day the Earth Stood Still, the original, a couple weeks ago, and that was a lot of fun.
Now, is it still holding up?
Yeah. I don't know. I like classic movies, and every once in a while I just like to dig something out that's kind of like that, and I was really into it.
It is. It's so awesome to get classic. Now, I just watched a classic movie too. Now, this is obviously not as old as that, but we had to watch A Christmas Story while decorating the tree the other day, and I have to say that it's just a classic film. That film never gets old. I think I've seen that film 30 times, and every time it cracks me up. Every single time.
I saw the musical on Broadway last year.
Oh yeah, was it good?
Yeah. I mean, well, you would think so. I mean, it does a really good job of capturing the movie.
See, so if you like the movie, Fragile, just a classic. It's a classic. All right. So is that achievements?
I believe that is achievements.
In a world where board gaming was king, in a time when Kickstarter ruled the web, when every day brought more and more games, now, more than ever, 2 men, and a revolving third chair, and a girl, a total fangirl, brought a shining light into the darkness so that all mankind would know what to buy. They are the D6 generation.
Hey, you know what that sound means? That sound means it's time to talk about our good friends over at Lone Wolf Development. And these are the guys that make the fantastic software that help you get the games gaming on.
I mean, it's really kind of crazy when you think about what a Luddite I am. I know nothing about computers, and I hate incorporating computers into my gaming unless you're talking about Lone Wolf Development. Because seriously, every one of their programs hits a sweet spot to take away all of the annoying background stuff and the preparation and the paperwork and makes it a fun part of the game in and of itself.
Exactly right. And what's great is Army Builder takes care of Army Builder data files. We got the brand new War Machine Hordes ones just got updated not too long ago. Fantastic one of our very own listeners, which is awesome. So that takes care of your miniature wargaming, putting together those army lists that are really tricky to do with all the details and the side things. Like especially like imagine you're trying to figure out which gear you're going to have each model, and you got a 30 model army. No problem. Army Builder makes that very easy for you. Card Vault takes care of keeping track of all your great collectible card game stuff.
And miniature games. Anything collectible, Card Vault will deal with it.
It does, and it does a great job, too, of like giving you predictability. Like, what do you think the odds are going to draw a card?
That's cheating.
Deck?
That's cheating.
But, Craig, I've been using the heck out of Realmworks. I couldn't even imagine playing D&D now without Realmworks. I'm loving every minute of it. They just came out with the Player's Edition portion of it. So Realmworks has been out for a little while now, and it lets the DM just keep track of everything and look truly like the master of the dungeon. The players come up and they ask me, what was that guy's name back in town? Boom, I have it instantly with like 2 clicks. I can find exactly what it is, all the references. But what's even better now is the Player Edition's out. So as you play the game with your players and you break your material down, like let's say you have a dungeon and you have different sections of the dungeon, you can click a little button that shows which parts of that particular area you've created the players know about. So you can say, well, the players know this guy's name is Herbert, but they don't know that Herbert secretly has a pet lion that has killed half the villagers, right? So you can click the fact they know his name is Herbert. You can click the fact they know where he lives, but you leave the part they know about the lion blank. Now what's cool is that the new Players Edition, the Players Edition lets the players log into your world, see what they've discovered, and know more. And they can see what they discovered by date. So if they want to see what they learned about last play session, not a problem. They want to see what they learned about 2 play sessions ago, want to see all the information. They've got all that right at their fingertips and see exactly what's going on. It's like a website for your world.
Yeah, it's really, really, really crazy.
Really, really cool. So check that out as well. You really can't go wrong. Realmworks, they just, again, Army Builder, all of Craig, the products are fantastic. They leave me speechless. I don't know what to say.
Well, the thing is, Russ, we were huge fans of Lone Wolf long before we even started a podcast, and just updating all the time. I mean, I can't express enough. I think I'm as tongue tied as Russ. Just it literally takes parts of the game that are just annoying and frustrating and makes them fun in and of themselves. That's really the pitch in one sentence.
And we forgot the other piece of software, Hero Lab.
I didn't forget it. I thought you'd already mentioned it, or I would have been jumping right in there.
It's the part that lets you do your character creation for a wide variety of RPGs, and including they have tons and tons and tons of stuff for Pathfinder, including a fantastic iPad app that basically lets you run your character right on an iPad. It looks fantastic. Again, if you are a gamer and you have a computer, you should be over at wolflair.com seeing what they can do for you. It's just that simple. It really is.
And one elaboration and one credit where credit is due. Realmworks is completely system neutral, so you don't have to buy anything else, and you don't have to worry about, I'm playing, Garage Hammer 5.0 or whatever. Whatever you're playing, it's not doing your rolling and stuff for you. Hero Lab can do that to a certain extent, but Realmworks is the world. You're like creating an atlas for everything that you're doing. And credit where credit is due, that listener that's done all of the the data files for War Machine and Hordes, Santiago, shout out to him. So you've got to check it out. Doesn't matter what kind of gamer you are. You're collecting stuff, you're playing miniatures, you're role playing, they've got something for you at Lone Wolf Development.
Indeedy do. And now, in an attempt to bring a small amount of dignity and decorum to this otherwise base form of entertainment, and I use the term loosely, I am proud to present... Oh, get on with it. It's time for App of the Ep. Seriously, Wakeland, I used to have my own segment, and now I'm relegating to announcing this pap. Hey, you're lucky we still use you. Hey, folks, and welcome to the inaugural... I think that's right. The inaugural episode of App of the Ep. Now, of course, it's appeared as a sub-segment of the news. Where do I miss that? Easy news guy. But now, basically, the news is tricky because, the shows are timeless, essentially. People go back and listen to them all the time. And, of course, the news segment over time becomes less valuable. And plus, to be honest, it's been, it's just challenging to keep up with the news, and a lot of other podcasts do news. So, I think it's time maybe to do a little change, mix it up a little bit. And I was getting great feedback from folks about listening to the little technological bits I'd sneak in there once in a while. And so why not make it an official segment, see how it goes. So here we are, App of the Ep. And in this new segment, I'm going to try to cover just maybe an app of a week. It might be a mobile app on iOS or something, or a tablet. It might be a video game. And it might be some other little form of technology that I kind of squeeze in and shoehorn into the loose definition of app. And that's the case this time around. I have some really fun technology I kind of want to talk to you about. But first, a quick shout out for the new segment. I want to thank, of course, all our patrons over at Patreon. You guys are fantastic. I want to give a shout out to some of our newest members over there. Kirk, Jamie, Benjamin, Ted, and Frank just joined us this past December. Thank you, folks, for jumping in and helping out the show. You patrons are fantastic. You're the guys that let us do the chat room. You give us the funding to do all this great stuff and keep us motivated. It's fantastic. So thanks again for all that help. We really appreciate it. And now let's get on to App of the Ep. So recently, I have to blame my brother for this. And this is going to sound a little like not geeky technology, but I'll bring it back. So over the past summer, my brother invested in Sonos speakers, which for those of you who don't know Sonos, it's a pretty well-known brand now. And it's actually big enough now that you can find them in Best Buy and other electronics and home theater and that kind of retailer. These are speakers that are wireless. You just plug them into your wall, and they connect to your Wi-Fi network. And essentially, they have a really cool app for your phone, your Windows machine, or your various tablets that lets you control them. Now, a couple cool bits of technology in here. First of all, the streaming is actually handled by software on board on the speaker. It's not like a Bluetooth speaker for your phone where you stream from your phone. If you turn your phone off or you walk too far away from your phone, the streaming stops or your phone battery's getting eaten up. In this case, you use your phone to tell the speaker what to play. When you might stream from a music collection on a central hard drive, you might stream from Pandora or Spotify or any one of many music services they support. And you put all your account information once, and then when you tell it to stream from something like, let's say, Pandora, the speaker does the streaming, and you can turn your phone off, take it out of the house, drive away. Doesn't matter. The streaming still works, which is really nice because your phone's not dependent on your phone. Second of all, it means that anybody in the house can open their phone up and immediately see what's playing and also control the volume and everything else on the speaker. But that's just the beginning. You can then put these speakers throughout your home and tell Sonos which room they're in. And what's really cool then is you can actually go ahead and say, okay, play, rock pop music in the kitchen. My grandparents are downstairs because it's Christmas, so play some classical music for them or maybe some classic Christmas tunes. And so you can control which music's in which room. Or if you're walking through the house and you want the same music, you can have the same music playing in all the rooms and it's all continuously synced. So as you walk from the kitchen to the living room to downstairs, if you have a speaker in one of those rooms, the music's going to seamlessly go through the entire house, which is great. So I'm looking at these things. My brother's got a couple of Sonos Play Ones, which is the entry-level model. These are not cheap, by the way. The entry-level model, the Play Ones are $200, and they only go up from there, and they get very, very pricey. So it's a big investment, and if you're really into home theater and home audio, these numbers aren't crazy expensive. But if you're more of a casual audio person, then of course they might sound a little pricey, and they are. And they have different categories of these speakers. So they have the Play Ones, which are your base models. They sound really, really good. The Play 3s, and I think it's Play 3s, and then the Play 5s. And so Nicole, my wife, obviously really wanted a good speaker downstairs in the office when she's working, and she really wanted some bass. So we went for the Play 5 first, which is a really good sounding speaker. It's got a built-in subwoofer. It's a little more expensive. And so we went with that model, and she loved it. Oh, she loved it. So we got one. It's like, okay, well, this is great. And the other concern was, is it easy to use? I have a home theater system from like 1995 in my living room. Works fine. It's Dolby 5.1, blah, blah, blah. But it is dated. It's getting old. And, it's got the whole receiver thing, and it's kind of tricky to use. And so Nicole never wants to fiddle with it all the time. And so I just was amazed by how easy this was. And, of course, we went to Best Buy, and there it is on the shelf, the new Sonos sound bar. So the idea behind the sound bar is it goes under your television like any other sound bar and emulates 3D surround sound. And so I'm like, ooh, well, I really need to get new living room audio. So we decided to splurge, and for a big Christmas present, we kind of sonified the whole house, if you will. We'd have to save up a little bit, but basically, so we went to the sound bar under the television, went with speakers in various rooms, and then I really splurged. And so in the living room, if you go with just a sound bar, and we tried it, you do get a little surround sound, a good stereo, and it sounds great, but you don't have that full surround sound feel from behind you. It can't quite pull that off. But here's the thing. You can add more Sonos Ones, link it to the sound bar, and then tell it which channel it is, and now you've got full surround sound. If you want to go really crazy, you can also buy a dedicated Sonos woofer for the room, or subwoofer, and all of a sudden, boom, it's also synced in. And again, no wires, which is really, really nice. So here's where the tech stuff comes in. So the tricky bit about all this is all the speakers are wireless, except for the sound bar, which is going into your television, because you might imagine for TV audio to get into this, now you got a problem. You can't really stream from the internet. So what they've got is they've got exactly one audio input on the back of the sound bar, and it's fiber optics audio, digital audio in, which is very common nowadays. Your major consoles have fiber optics audio out, like the Xbox One and the 360 and the PS3 and the PS4 and a bunch of other things, and a lot of good receivers, everything else. And also, many televisions nowadays also have fiber audio out. So the idea is that you have all your various video devices going into your television, and then you have fiber audio going out one cable into the Sonos speaker. And this is really great because and it works great. And once you're listening to it, you can then actually stream that audio from your Sonos bar to any other speaker in the house, which I didn't know you could do this. And this is really cool. At first you're like, whatever, who's going to use that? But imagine it's Thanksgiving. You got the football game on in the living room. You got a bunch of other family members talking in the kitchen. A few of them are also interested in the game. You can stream the game audio to all your speakers in your home or whichever rooms you want. And now you can keep up with the game while you're walking around the house, which is really kind of cool. Or we like to watch, shows as a family, and maybe, Nicole's going to run into the kitchen real quick and grab something for the kids. The audio's still on. She can hear it. She doesn't miss out on the show. She can laugh if there's a joke when she's in the room. It's just more participatory. It's really, I didn't think I used the feature. Now I love it. There is, however, one technical rub, and that is that the fiber cable out of your television, most TVs, even good ones, don't have the ones with fiber out, don't actually take Dolby 5.1 surround sound or 7.1 surround sound out through the translate it from the HDMI into the television and then send it out through the fiber. So that means while your TV's receiving the Dolby surround sound signal from your whatever the component sending it is, whether it's your Xbox or your game console or your cable box, the TV is just sending out stereo audio from the fiber cable. So that's a problem because now your really expensive Sonos surround system doesn't have it. Well, the way I solve this problem is instead of plugging the TV audio out into the Sonos soundbar, I take the Xbox One audio out and plug it into the Sonos soundbar. The Xbox One, of course, sends out great surround sound. It works fantastically. And because I watch all my audio through the Xbox anyway, I can watch my TV live on my Xbox One. I watch all my streaming video on my Xbox One. It takes care of that problem for me and becomes the centralized sort of HDMI hub of my whole house. So that really works. It solves the problem. So this one little technical nit inside of the Sonos soundbar, which is that your TV being the centralized video hub doesn't transmit the audio properly, is totally solved if you're a gamer. You got your PS4, you got your Xbox One, just plug that right in there, watch your live television on those devices and everything else on those, and you're all set. It works fantastically. It's an added bonus for Xbox One owners because you can tell your Kinect to blast IR to your various components. You can also tell it to send your TV signals right to the Sonos as well. And so your TV, your Xbox One can control the volume of your Sonos system also. It works fantastically. Really, really pleased. It's definitely a big investment. Let's say the holidays go great for you and you get a little bit of spending money. If you are an audio person, definitely take a look at the Sonos speakers. Thank you for listening to another scintillating edition of App of the App, a segment in which, hey, less of that, more just getting on with the show. Seriously, Wakeland, you are like school in summer. No class. Hey, now it's time to talk about our favorite touring geeks over at GeekNationTours.com. Craig, what is the hotness over there right now? If you go over there and click on new tours, what am I going to see?
Well, I'm looking at the new tours, Russ, and I'm seeing a great visual image for TempleCon, our local convention.
Oh, yeah, right.
Or I should say one of our local conventions now, because I don't want to take your credit for it or anything, but there's a whole bunch of conventions in New England now. But there's that, of course, Adepticon, which always looks to be one of their biggest draws and brings huge crowds all the way from Australia, New Zealand, and far off places that are not as far off as those far off places.
Right.
But don't forget, okay, well, first of all, this would be the year to go to Adepticon because they're moving to the big time with a giant convention center in Chicago.
Yeah.
And there's a Ram there. How weird is that?
What?
A Ram restaurant
like
right there on the same
Indianapolis?
street as the convention center.
Are they going to be all war machined up? Because that would be awesome.
I don't know. It would be bizarre, but it's very intriguing. That's going to be a cool thing to find out.
Yeah, for sure.
And, of course, their signature Battlefield series is just there's a Waterloo, there's Britain Stands Alone.
Ooh, nice.
I mean, so there's a lot of cool stuff like that coming up. And, of course, let's not forget about Gen Con.
No, we should not forget about that.
And Gen Con is with Adepticon, I think they're starting with a big themed game. They're bringing big game companies in. They're playing like a big convention style game at their big opening dinner.
Right.
So they're really pumping up every tour. They learn more, they incorporate more, and the Gen Con's going to be huge, and it's going to include all kinds of podcasts again, publishers, all kinds of events, every really cool event you can go to at Gen Con. And there's only a few rooms left for Gen Con. So if you're thinking that this is the year, you really got to jump on it as soon as you can.
Right. Exactly right. And, make sure you go to that website. They're always adding new stuff. The Sherlock Holmes tour, really? That looks fantastic. Just great stuff over there at GeekNationTours.com.
The D6 generation. Not as good as Lord of the Rings, but better than The Hobbit.
But the hobbits as the lovely hobbit says. Smeagol, there is only one hobbit in the hobbits. There are 1, 2, many hobbits in the Lord of the Rings.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And all of you who have been listening for the last few months know that one of the big highlights for both Russ and I from Gen Con was getting a chance to play Star Wars Armada. Even more so for myself, I got to play the game with the game's producer, Michael Gernes, who was running the demo when I played it. And how lucky are we that we not only have Michael Gernes, the producer of Star Wars Armada, with us tonight, we also have James Niffen, who is one of the lead designers of the games. Welcome, Michael and James. We're so happy to have you on the show.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having us. I think we're both excited to be here.
Yeah, we love being on your show.
Oh, thanks for coming on. This is fantastic. Craig, I can't wait to talk Star Wars. This is like,
I know,
how
this
good
is
is
like
this topic?
We get to just geek out and
I know, right?
not actually do a show.
Exactly. I didn't do any prep for this. So I guess we got to ask, so you guys have been doing, how long have you been working on the Armada project, both of you?
Well, with any project, it goes through a lot of stages.
Yep.
It takes a while to make any sort of game and do the whole process from design to actually producing it and getting it into a store.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been working on for several months.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think you could say it's been a huge part of my 2014.
Ah, cool.
Nice. So so quite some time now, and this was this one of those things where, like, I mean, it felt like me. I think every gamer that's ever picked up X-Wing, which is a fantastic game by you guys, and played it, it's like, okay, now we just need Star Destroyers. Is that sort of what happens when you just woke up and say, you know what, now it's time for Star Destroyers?
Well, we've always wanted to see a Star Destroyer on the table. It looks beautiful.
Right.
So we've got a victory Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
I think, definitely, it is it's something people have been clamoring for a while, and I'm excited to be part of the project bringing that to fruition.
Cool. Now, what were some of the biggest challenges? So you're sitting down there, right? And you've got a fantastic, beloved game now, that's obviously small space fighter combat. And how do you look at that and say, okay, I want to make this now have capital ships in it, and yet still have its roots in X-Wing. What were some of your biggest design challenges when you started tackling something like that?
Well, obviously, the first thought was that we didn't want it to just be X-Wing, because X-Wing is its own product line that's still going extremely strong, and we want it to feel like a completely separate game so that you feel like you can invest in a completely new game. We definitely wanted this game to feel.
We both played a lot of X-Wing. We both worked on X-Wing at different times, and X-Wing is a great reactive dogfighting game, and we wanted this to feel more like this to have an identity as the capital ship game.
Mm-hmm. It's the gentleman's game, if you will.
The gentleman's game. Nice. So this is the game you play with some cognac, then, you're saying. You sit down and kind of,
a snifter.
A little snifter by your side.
Collector's edition comes with 2 snifters.
I don't know if Akbar's special chair has a cup
holder.
It's a trap, and I need a refill.
It's a trap and an excellent whiskey.
An excellent invention. Great. So you definitely wanted it to be. So it sounds like, by using that terminology, I'm guessing you wanted it to feel a little less, not play slower necessarily, but feel of a less frenetic and more like, like many naval combat games, a little more thoughtful. Is that the right way to phrase it?
Sure. It's all about planning, right?
Right.
Like X-Wing is, as Michael mentioned, it's the reactive game. Mm-hmm. And what defines going up to that level of being an admiral is the constant strategic planning that is beyond just the tactical element. And that it was basically the core influence of all the mechanics that developed in the game.
Cool. Can you give us an example of one of the mechanics that sort of gives you that flavor? Is it like the course charting or something like that? Or what do you guys use to really kind of give that feel of giant ships moving slowly kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Well, the most obvious example would be the command dials, the stackable command dials, because it's a very integrated way to do planning for multiple rounds in advance. So depending on what ship you are, if you have a high command value, you have to plan up to 3 rounds in advance. And the maneuver tool it does the same thing effectively, because you have a very limited yaw and speed that you can go depending on the choices that you've made, and you can definitely see your course on the play area and see how you can modify it to a degree, but it's the position that you're in still establishes roughly where you're going to be in the next 2 turns, more so than X-Wing does, because obviously these capital ships don't do K turns.
Right. Wow, cool. So, let's talk a little bit about. I want to get more into those cool things you're mentioning there, like the stackable dials and the cool new serpentine little measuring tool there. Measuring key. What is the term for that? Is it a measuring key? Is that what they call that? What do you guys call that around the shop?
Yep.
Is it a key? Is that what it is?
The maneuver tool. We generally call it the maneuver tool.
The maneuver tool. All right.
Oh,
the MT.
Well, cutting right to the chase.
All right.
The MT.
The MT. The maneuver. Everything has an acronym. That's just how it is. So what were some
and a number though in Star Wars? That would be the MT 305.
Right. Yes. Right.
I think it would be your MT 305 unit.
Right.
And then we would have to discuss the variants of the MT305 unit, whether it's produced in Corellia or produced in Kuat Drive.
Right.
Yeah, that will be one of our arguments. Apparently,
it increases their collectability. Right. As long as they don't have a bad motivator, you're fine. So let me
size-wise, how do they compare to a Womp Rat?
All right, geez, we got it. Yeah. So what were some of your? So as you kind of came up with, so we know the result, right? You came up with these really cool. Which we're going to talk about.
For those people who haven't seen it, can you guys explain us a little bit about how the MT305 works?
Sure. It's basically a tool that guides your path, and it's a tool of multiple segments. Yep. Each segment corresponds to a speed, and depending on the speed you're going, that dictates how many segments you'll move along. And then each segment is actually jointed so that it can click a certain number of degrees to the left or to the right. And you choose how far you click at each joint, depending on your what your ship is capable of, so that you can roughly decide where you're going to end up based on a limited choice.
Gotcha. So your movement in Armada, is your speed for the capital ships, which is kind of the meat of the game, is a combination of how far along that you go and how many clicks of turning you're capable of doing in that span of movement?
Exactly.
Awesome.
And that system allows you to do. It allows you. You're restricted in some ways, but it allows you to do some interesting things, like essentially having your ship side slip.
Cool.
And make you have to worry about how tight a turn you can make. That's definitely a skill within the game.
Oh, very cool.
And
go ahead,
can you tell us a little bit about how did that come about? Did you start knowing, okay, we're gonna the movement templates in X-Wing are very cool, very, very, very neat the way they all work out. But obviously that's not how capital ships moves. So was it right at the beginning you knew, you know what, guys, we're going to have to come up with something a little more complicated and a little more in depth? Where did that happen?
Yeah. Actually, Christian, the CEO, who's also the designer on the game, that was sort of his brilliant spark. He thought of it, the process that he went through to come to the idea, but he originated that idea, and then we made the mechanics around that tool.
Excellent. Okay, Russ, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask, so how did you, when you're going through this process, right, so it sounds like that was one of the key elements was getting the way to plot the courses of these large ships, and the movement tool sounds really neat. What were some of the other big challenges you had as you're trying to come up with ways? What were the other big problems you were trying to solve as you're moving to capital ships from fighters beyond movement?
Well, so probably the most obvious one is figuring out how conflict resolution is going to work. Like how are attacks going to work? Should ships be able to evade like they do in X-Wing? That seems pretty silly. So we just tried to. The biggest challenge was just trying to make defense feel like it was something that was within the player's control, because certainly admirals have some control over where their shields are and how they're investing their resources into defending themselves. And so when we came up with the defense token idea, which sort of removed defense dice from the game as it is in X-Wing, that was probably the big breakthrough that really determined how the game felt, essentially.
Yeah, so, I remember a lot of discussions about how we wanted this to feel like you're fighting a battle of attrition. The art of fleet combat is about damage control, and not the damage avoidance is great, but is a lot harder to achieve with these giant warships.
Right.
Great. So, can you describe a little bit about how your how the token system works there to try to focus your defense and damage control?
Oh, sure. It's really simple. After the attacker rolls dice and fiddles with them with whatever abilities he has and whatnot, you have the opportunity to spend your defense tokens, and each ship has its own set that sort of identify what defensive capabilities it has, or at least what sort of capabilities it excels at. So, like a CR-90 is capable of some evasive action, so it has an evade defense token, which cancels an attack die. Most ships have a redirect token because naturally you shift your shields around if you when you have time to see laser fire coming in periodic blasts over time.
It's a very Star Wars thing,
right?
Yeah.
So because each ship is different in the set that it has, which is the key element there that determines how each ship essentially has to plan for it getting attacked over the course of the battle.
And are these tokens sort of like a resource? So if I hit you with enough firepower, you kind of run out of tokens and your shields are essentially down for a moment, that kind of thing?
Yep, you can spend them. When you spend them, you flip them over.
Yeah.
And at the end of the round, they refresh. So they are a limited resource unless you only have so many of them. And then if you spend them while they are already exhausted, which is what happens when you spend them the first time during the round, you lose them permanently for the rest of the game.
Okay. Cool.
Ooh.
It's been burned out.
Right.
Yeah.
So you overcharge the shields to defend against that last shot, and now they're down, kind of thing. That's awesome. That's cool. I love that. Very neat. Now, a lot of times we talk to game designers on the show, and Craig talks about this too with writing sometimes, that the idea that, one of the tricks to game design that, from my understanding, because I've never done one, is that you try to keep the rules reasonably thin. And so sometimes you get these really great ideas that are really, really awesome, but they just, in the end, the game is just cleaner without it. Do you guys have a really, really cool concept? Just like, we had to leave it out because, for whatever reason, it didn't fit. But what's that? Do you have a rule like that? Didn't quite make the cut, but you thought was kind of neat?
I honestly can't think of one. Can you think of any, Michael?
I mean, there are definitely things that we discussed we would love to be able to do, that we decided maybe things we would want to leave on the table for now. But, you're always, I think one thing about any sort of development process like this is that you're taking great ideas and refining them down.
Right.
The nitty gritty of that is kind of difficult to discuss sometimes,
right,
out of context. But I think there's a lot of things that we would love to be able to model, and some things we decided in order to deliver the kind of experience we wanted, we didn't want to get to that level of modeling those things.
Oh,
Gotcha.
And a lot of times you have that rule that you just really want in, that mechanic that's really fun, and you actually do find a way to simplify it and combine it with another rule and end up with something better than what you originally had. But the reality of game design is usually that isn't that you're cutting good ideas, it's that you're cutting bad ideas, because it's a lot easier to come up with terrible ideas.
Cool. Now, so can you give us one example of something that's in the game that you're particularly proud of, but was hard to maybe fit in, but you finally made it work, like you just said?
I'm very glad that well, I guess on a secondary note, we'll talk more about this later. But I'm very proud of the squadrons.
Oh yes.
I'm also very happy with what we were able to achieve with obstacles, and having essentially terrain be an important part of the game.
Now that's awesome. We didn't see any terrain in the demo, so could you go into a little detail on how that's going to work? Because that sounds awesome.
Sure. Terrain's very simple. There's just some obstacles. This is where it is a little close to X-Wing, where you just, as you would expect, if you run into some of the terrain pieces, which are punchboard tokens, you will suffer some damage.
And that would be bad.
Right. Exactly. You don't want to take the neater route to victory.
Right.
And the squadrons generally ignore obstacles because they can pretty easily fly through them or around them. So it's very simple. It's not meant to add much complexity, just that little bit of board variation that makes each setup different.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know you guys play a lot of minis games, and that I think that's one of the things I like about having this sort of element and having just a little bit of extra variety, so that if we can play the same objective twice, but it won't be the exact same game.
Nice.
Gotcha.
Very cool. So you guys, that's awesome. So you guys talked about, and it sounds like, you were able to get some of those little smaller rules, like the way the tokens work, they can represent a variety of things too. So I like games like that where you kind of have nods to all the subsystems and fancy things that should be happening there, but it keeps it elegant so that you don't have to, try to model all that and spend 20 minutes.
Pages of notes and you're penciling in different things. Yeah. Right. I love that sort of elegant aspect of tracking things, but not at the same time having to worry about all that bookkeeping.
So go ahead.
Oh, I was merely agreeing with you. You are spot on.
He's a wise man.
Yes, look at that. So let's talk. So you mentioned a couple cool rules I want to follow up on. So if you guys can, and if you can't share all the details of these rules, you just tell us, hey, we can't tell you yet. Go buy the game. But here's one of the recent articles on your site, kind of doing a little preview teaser stuff. You talks a little bit about the course charting, and you talked a little bit about it. So can you give us sort of an example of how the stackable orders kind of combine with the movement tool to kind of give you this sort of predictive planning about how your ships are going to go along throughout the move through the battlefield?
Yeah, that strategic level that's a cool added element now.
Sure. The command dials are sort of the overarching mechanic that impacts the entire game, and then maneuvering is one aspect that works into the command dials. So as you would have seen from some of the demos, there are a number of commands, and one of them is the navigate command. And when you're moving, you're stuck at the speed that you are currently going. You have to keep going at that speed and doing the clicks that you are allowed to do at that speed, because you have different options at each speed. You're stuck until you do the navigate command. And once you do the navigate command, you can change your speed a little bit up or down. And then you can also click a little bit more on one of the joints so that you could do a harder turn than you might normally have done. So, for example, a Victory-class Star Destroyer isn't particularly maneuverable, but if you work some navigate commands in there, even though you just want to concentrate fire all the time, of course, you can do some harder turns and hopefully get that great shot out of your front hull zone, which has all of your guns primarily, and turn the game in your favor.
I like to think about commands as what you're having your crew focus on at any given point in time. Is we're talking about giant ships crewed by thousands of people, and your ship is always going to continue to move. It's always going to continue to shoot. Those are things you can just do. But whether you're choosing to focus on navigation or repairing your ship or commanding your squadrons, that's what the commands add in, and so they add an extra element of skill because you're anticipating what you're going to be needing in 2 rounds from now.
Yeah. Very cool.
Where you're going to need to focus.
Oh, go ahead. Well, that's very cool. And so it sounds to me like, so it sounds like for our listeners who haven't had a chance to play the game yet and are just drooling, staring at your website and throwing money at the screen, but nothing's being sucked in, is basically, it sounds like your ships attack and move every turn. And really what your order is doing is is kind of deciding which of those sort of phases you're going to enhance this turn. Are you going to have a little better maneuverability this turn? Are you going to have better firepower this turn? Or are your fighter's going to function a little better this turn? That kind of thing. Is that sort of how it works?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You do move and attack each turn, and then the commands are basically modifying, and they're the difference between the Great Admiral and the Good Admiral, because the Great Admiral chooses just the right commands for the right time and gets that little bonus that is exactly what he needs to do that one extra damage to destroy an enemy ship or change the speed at just the right time to avoid an obstacle.
So,
and
go ahead.
The key element there is that in this game you attack before you move, whereas in X-Wing you move and then attack. So we were talking about planning before and how it's worked into everything. Even in just the basic round, because you attack before you move, you are always thinking one round ahead, because the ships that are in front of you when you attack aren't going to be there on the next turn. You have to anticipate where they're going to be.
And you hinted at this earlier too, and I think this is really fascinating because people who play X-Wing and they're hearing orders, they're probably thinking, order dials. They're thinking, one order dial next to each ship. But in Armada, the order dials stack, right? So that is going to require even more advanced planning, right? Can you kind of give a little insight how that part works?
Right. When you choose a command and you choose generally one around for each of your ships, it goes to the bottom of your stack. So however high the stack is, it takes that many rounds for the command that you just plotted to actually be the one you'll be resolving. So if you have 3 dials, on the second turn, you'll plan one, and that one won't come up until round 5.
Right. That sounds like it's really hard. Now, are the command dial stacks always the same all the time, or do they get higher and lower depending on events in the game?
The commands remain the same for a ship.
Okay.
It's just depending on what ship you have, you might have a different number of command dials. So certain ships that are naturally able to react more quickly, because you would expect that having only a couple hundred crew, they can on the fly do whatever they need to do. That ship might only have a command of 1, like a CR-90. But a Victory class Star Destroyer has a few thousand people on it, so it takes a little longer for that chain of command to actually be affected.
Cool. Neat. That's cool. I love that. That's just great. So one of the questions I want to ask you, and I know people are thinking about this too. So sometimes, you've got there's a lot of really cool different weapon types in, X-Wing, right? You got your ion cannons and your various types of missiles and torpedoes, and you got different kinds of lasers. And did you keep a long weapon list, or did you have to shorten the weapon list down as the scale went up? Does that question make sense? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, if you study all the canon resources and all the EU resources and whatnot, you see that there's an immense amount of weaponry out there. But just as with any modern realistic war situation, everything ultimately boils down to certain categories. And what Michael and I worked on together to make that whole system, which could have been amazingly complex, into just a simple, elegant system. Because again, elegance is the key. We designed the color system where you have red, black, or blue dice, and that determines both essentially your firepower and your range all in one. But you don't have to refer to a lot of charts or have some complex math to figure it all out. You just know which dice and which color to roll, and you roll them. And each die is a little different, and that's how it determines your firepower. Like a black die has a great chance of hitting and a good chance of doing double damage, whereas a blue die is the accuracy die, and so it's much more likely to negate some of the enemy's defense token.
And a red die has a chance of spiking. It also has a good chance of doing critical hits. It's kind of your all-arounder die, and it also has the longest engagement range, which I think is one of the things that I like about the system, having played a lot of mini games. Engagement ranges and envelope is an important consideration, and we've been able to do that with the dice.
So
Star Wars Armada.
Is it kind of like Descent, where the dice indicate both attack damage and the effective range of the weapon, kind of thing?
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, it's a more obvious analogy, basically. Like,
Okay.
you know, if I have red dice, I can attack at the longest range.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I'm will do a certain percentage of damage.
Cool. So,
That.
so it won't take you long as a player to kind of know. Oh, this is a predominantly red dice weapon, so it's longer range. This is a predominantly blue die weapon, so it's more damaging. I'm sure I'm getting the colors wrong, but get the idea. Is that the sort of the thing?
Yeah, exactly. It's extremely intuitive. You pick it up within 2 attacks. You start to understand. Oh, this is a ship that mostly has black dice, which are very short range. So I better get up close and do some repairs early on to pick up early oncoming fire, and then just unload and hopefully destroy my target.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now you just.
Go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to say, you guys had just mentioned the canon and the expanded universe stuff, and could you tell us a little bit, like where did you go specifically for sort of the inspiration for these big capital ship battles? Was it the Battle of Death Star 2? Were there specific moments that you were trying to sort of craft your rules so that they could recreate those moments, or was it more of a sort of a, I don't know, an impression that you were trying to give rather than specific moments?
Not really specific moments, because we weren't really trying to recreate scenes. It's meant to be your own battles, like as though you were your own admiral deciding your own war front. Certainly the movies impacted us a great deal. We wanted to represent what you would expect to see in the game if you had only seen the movies. But aside from the movies, we can take inspiration from anything, including non-Star Wars references and details. And our RPG designers are a great source of information, technical detail, everything. They know their stuff.
Yeah, cool. I know we all discuss. I'm a history person, and we also discuss, capital ship conflicts throughout history and how that has informed science fiction depictions of capital ship conflict, and what that means for Star Wars. Mm-hmm. I know I definitely think a lot about the climax of Return of the Jedi in this game, because instead of being a fighter battle over the Death Star, this is these battles are fighter squadrons are weaving in and around the capital ships. The capital are trading, massive broadsides with each other.
Very cool.
We definitely took a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, that's exactly the image. It's timing.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Go ahead. No, you go. You're the guest. You're here special to talk.
That's all I was going to say, Craig.
Okay. I was just going to say that in the demo, that's exactly what I was thinking. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah. And I want to go back to a rules question I had for you guys, because, we've talked now, we've hinted around at squadrons. So we talked a little bit about movement. We talked, how we manage the big capital ship movement, and we've talked about weapon types. And you guys and Craig just talked about how, you get these visions of the epic battles in Star Wars, like in the climax in Jedi. And yet, as you both said, part of that climax is fighter squadrons weaving in and out. And so it wouldn't be a Star Wars game without fighters.
Absolutely.
So how do you guys and especially since a lot of your players are going to come from just playing X-Wing, which is obviously dogfight simulation. So how did you decide to tackle fighter squadrons in Armada?
Well, I mean, there were multiple decisions. The main thing was that we wanted them to feel appropriate for their scale. Like, this is a capital ship game, ultimately. Mm-hmm. If you want to just focus on squadrons, you can always play X-Wing. But squadrons are still an integral component of the capital ship experience, basically. And so, but they aren't meant to be the focus. So our goal was the E word again, elegance, just to keep it very simple, to make it necessary to make it represent the films, especially because they are a core element, but to make them only impactful enough that they are a necessary element without being the focus.
Cool. Yeah, I would say they are a meaningful small unit within the game, and your capital ships in Star Wars Armada are a lot more. They're more like the way the fighters are in X-Wing. They're the mainline unit. You just have this secondary type of unit that has different capabilities, and it's a fleet building decision to a large extent about how many resources am I going to invest in squadrons because I'm they're smaller, but they also spread risk around, and they're a lot more nimble.
Right. Very cool. And they have their own, because I've played a variety of different sci-fi fleet combat games, and they all seem to have trouble or get challenged with the idea of fighter squadrons. But I noticed you guys have the really cool sort of the damage indicator right in the base there, so you can kind of track hits against a fighter squadron. So are they basically more fragile, obviously, than the capital ships, but they're still around long enough to be a problem that people got to really watch out for?
Yeah, naturally, yeah. They're particularly fragile against other squadrons, obviously, since that's typically what happens in a Star Wars movie battle. If the ships attack the ships, the squadrons attack the squadrons. And then if one side wipes out the other side, then the squadrons can attack the ships. The health or the hull being tracked on the squadrons was just another way of keeping it an elegant system so that you didn't have to have a card for every single squadron, because, say, you took a squadron heavy build and you had a full complement of, 8 X-Wing. You don't want to have a separate card for each one of those on top of all of your ships and the upgrade cards on those ships and all the other details, and track their health with separate tokens or something like that. So by tracking their health and their activation on the fighter disc, we kept it to a simple system where everything is on the table so that information is available to the players.
Nice. I wanted to ask this too, since we talked about the components there. Clearly, one of the big keys of success for X-Wing was just the amazing models and amazing pre-paints that came out with that. I mean, I have many friends who buy into X-Wing just for the models that aren't even gamers. Just I need to have, these are awesome
on my desk.
Yes. How did you? I mean, what? Obviously the models look fantastic for what early stuff we've seen for Armada. I mean, how did you make some decisions around like scale and those kind of things? I know when you did X-Wing, you were kind of very focused on everything would be true scale. You had that really nice article in the back of the rulebook, even, in the original game, about how you guys took a lot of information from Lucasfilm and figured out exactly how big a TIE fighter was in relation to an X-Wing, and everything was perfectly scaled out. Did you have a lot of challenges when it came to going to the capital ship size of how to represent scale properly and have the models look amazing but kind of be the right scale to each other?
Yeah, well, this is a really interesting area because this is also a chance for me to kind of shout out to our great coworkers, because definitely a big team effort in making a lot of those determinations, doing those models. Yes, we put a lot of thought into how we were going to represent scale in this game, because with X-Wing, and it's one of the high points of the game, is that we can keep things very closely in scale to each other. Mm-hmm. In Armada, it's a little bit of a different challenge because we're dealing with ships. The difference in scale between fighting units is so vast, and we still want to deliver a battle that you can fight out, on your tabletop in your dining room, right? Or your favorite local game store. And so it would be very difficult to make a product that was feasible to do that with if everything was at true 1-to-1 scale to each other. Mm-hmm. So we chose to go with a relative scale where we paid close attention to ship dimensions and how ships what size category they are in, and then we decide exactly what sort of size class they fall into, and we try to keep all the ships within a size class within more or less true scale to one another, and then between the size classes, that's where we sort of telescope things.
Got it.
And that's largely a decision to make the game producible and playable and affordable, and in a way that delivers a really fun experience. And I think we definitely have learned a lot of things from X-Wing, and this product had its own challenges, and it was really interesting to grapple with those.
Right, and there's no question that the models look amazing on the table.
Absolutely,
yeah. They really do. And I think you guys, I like the call. I get I've seen sci-fi space combat games where, the capital ships are roughly scaled to each other, but then they also make the fighters the same size as the capital ship, so you can see where they are. And that always bothers me a little bit. I like, obviously, if you'd made the actual little squadron ships the actual scale size as they would appear next to a Star Destroyer, they would just be dots, right? They'd be pinheads. Yeah. So I like where you went. I mean, I can still tell that squadron of 3, TIE fighters on one base there are clearly TIE fighters, and they're clearly a lot smaller than the Star Destroyer they're flying next to, but they're a little too big, but it's okay. It just somehow works. I think you guys found the right balance, mentally, for my brain anyway, to kind of make it all work and still look amazing and have enough model there to really go, oh, look, it's a TIE fighter. Oh, look, it's 10 TIE fighters. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
well, thank you. That's a great compliment.
It looks great. Now, how did you decide? My understanding is, and I know everything's pre-production right now, and maybe you haven't made final decisions yet, I don't know, but last time I kind of looked at it carefully, I think that the capital ships are all pre-painted, but the fighters are not, or how does that work?
Correct.
Okay.
Capital ships all come pre-painted. Squadrons will be in a factional color of plastic.
Okay.
So they have some uniformity, and that helps to pick out the details. But we have chosen to leave them that way for a variety of reasons. I would say one of the main reasons is that we would like to deliver the same level of quality on all the units, all painted units that we have, people come to expect from X-Wing.
Yeah.
And to do that on the fighter squadrons would just not be feasible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this piece of plastic that's obviously just the harder it is to paint.
Right.
But I can say that our beta testers have painted their squadrons, and they look pretty darn amazing, and I definitely challenge the miniatures gamers out there to do their best to make their squadrons unique to their own fleet.
Yeah, I'm a painter, so I'm certainly going to be doing that myself.
Yeah, I have no doubt people will step up. And I think it's great. It's great, and I love the idea that they're different faction colors, so you can easily identify, the Rebels from the Imperium on the tabletop, and then still jump in there if you're a painter. And I've seen, we saw at Gen Con a lot of the capital ships, and I can say they're just as amazingly detailed and well painted as anything in the X-Wing line. So again, I don't know how you guys do it at the price point you do it at, but they look fantastic. They really do.
Absolutely. Now, without giving anything away, guys, could you tell, are there plans to include bigger capital ships down the road?
Well, I would sure love to see bigger ships on the table. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is certainly a game that lends itself to expansion.
Yeah.
So we've already talked about the crazy tools, and we've got some questions from our listeners I want to ask you guys too. But I really wanted to ask a couple more things. So this will come up in the Lost chapter also. But I am a big fan of the old X-Wing versus TIE Fighter video game series, right? And my favorite part about those games was that they really, when LucasArts did those games, they came up with and they really leveraged a lot of the different canon and came up with some really cool tactical strategic moments you had to deal with. Like, there's an interdictor class Star Destroyer in the middle of the Rebel fleet, and now, for those who don't know what an interdictor is, an interdictor creates a field that doesn't let you jump to hyperspace. So you've got this interdictor now in the middle of your fleet. You can't run away. Of course, Rebels are always outnumbered. There's a giant Imperial fleet coming in. What do? You got to take out the interdictor so you can run away before the whole fleet shows up, that kind of thing. Do you guys... are there interdictors? If you can't answer that, you can't answer that. But B, more importantly, you can tell me you can tell me you can't answer interdictors, which is fine, and I'll be sad, but that's okay. But the bigger question really is, what are you guys doing for scenarios out of the box and then down the road?
That's a good question.
So to answer your bigger question, we don't do missions as we do in X-Wing because that's X-Wing's thing. Mm-hmm. We sort of instead designed an objective card system that allows you to tailor essentially the challenge that your opponent is going to face to as a balance for the fact that he is essentially thematically the attacker and you're the defender. So there are these objectives would do things like establish that a ship is going to be doing a jump into the battle from hyperspace,
but
and your opponent is going to have to deal with that, or the defender has set the play area to his liking, and obstacles don't affect him, but they affect you. We've essentially created those thematic moments through this objective card system rather than doing predefined scenarios.
That
you can
That's cool.
Nice. Okay, cool. So did you say those are cards?
Right. Yep. They're objectives.
Nice.
Objective cards that are a part of your fleet, essentially.
Oh, excellent.
Pick an objective card from each category, and when you meet up to play a battle, your opponent is going to be picking one of those cards that he's going to have to achieve from your hand, so that you have to pick the least worst of bad choices.
Right. Nice.
Like
So it actually designs the missions as you go as part of the game.
Exactly.
That's very cool. I like that a lot.
That is cool. I like it.
And as for interdictors, I'll just say that when X-Wing first came out, I said on the air, I just pray someday you guys make a TIE Defender, and poof, TIE Defenders came out. So I'll just say it here again, see if the magic works. I pray someday you guys make an interdictor. I'll just say it there.
We'll see.
So we'll see if that happens.
As a fellow fan of both the X-Wing and TIE Fighter games, because I love those games. I love the Heir to the Empire novels. I remember the interdictor playing a big factor in those. Yes, I too would love to see it on a tabletop.
Great.
One day.
And it's a cool looking ship. It's cool looking.
There you go.
So, Craig, should we get to some of our listeners' questions before we run out of time here? We got a couple.
Well, actually, we've been slowly seeding those questions as well. But yeah, there's a few left over.
So why don't you give some of there? You already asked some of Phil's and Andy's.
Yeah, well, we'll go with Phil first. Yeah. Phil from the UK. Viva la Pole. And we already asked a lot of those questions that we didn't get answered. I'm just going to touch on one more. Are you guys in the vein of expansions? Can you say it all? If down the road, is there an idea of giving more kinds of fighter squadrons, or is that just a vague sense of that would be cool too?
Yeah, naturally you would expect that there are expansions planned for the game, so that's certainly one of the possibilities.
Well, good enough for me.
Well, I want to ask this question though. So I kind of asked the weapon type, question, and you guys came back with a great answer, which was, there's these different dice categories, and they sort of inform and sort of abstract the great variety of weapon types in the Star Wars universe. How abstract did you get with fighter types? Is it obviously, as you mentioned earlier, there's the game X-Wing, if you want to know the difference between a Z95 and an X-Wing, but are the squadrons in broad categories of craft type? Like, is it bombers and snub fighters? Or is it that kind of thing? Or how did you guys, what's the level of granularity on different fighter types?
It's a very elegant system where we just essentially used a keyword system, and if you watch some of the demos that are online, you can see the X-Wings and the TIE Fighters that are out on the table. For example, the X-Wings have the bomber keyword, which makes them more effective against capital ships, and the TIE Fighters have the swarm keyword, which makes them better at grouping up into just piles of TIE Fighters.
Piles of TIE Fighters.
Squadrons.
As well they should.
Exactly. So we don't really expand it into a category system. It's just very simply what's written on the card.
Got it. Oh, it's cool. And there
you go.
And is that card tied to the capital ship? So one capital ship might launch X-Wings, or is that how it works? Or do the capital ships limit the types of fighter keywords you can have launching out of it?
You can have whatever you would like. The capital ships certainly are vary in their ability to impact squadrons, like in their ability to control them and send them out on alpha strikes or something like that. But all the squadrons are just controlled by a single card for that squadron type. So, there's one TIE Fighter card.
Got it.
And then unique pilots like Hal Runner would have his own card, or her own card, rather, since she has additional abilities.
Well,
capital ships function like the CIC of a carrier group. They're about directing the fighter battle when you choose to focus on that.
Right. So there's no fighter recovery and deployment in the game. All the fighters start on nobody's launching out of carriers and landing on carriers in mid battle. You're pretty much out from the beginning, from the get go.
Right. That was a level of complexity that we decided just wasn't necessary to represent battle.
Yeah, I think that's right, because I play with a lot of fighter games that have that in there, and I would say in 99% of them, nobody ever uses it unless the game really abstracts the heck out of it and makes it so you always use it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's cool. I like that you guys.
You're starting the game in the beginning of the battle.
Right.
Everybody's already launched.
If you're landing on the deck, something's already gone wrong.
Something's gone wrong. Exactly.
All right.
Now,
I think Cost would be exciting, but yeah, we decided it's better for this game this way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, does your game is there a guideline sort of as to what size the actual table? Like, how big a space am I going to have to make for my Firestorm Armada games? I mean, Star Wars Armada. Sorry, misspoke. My apologies. Yes, I am red-faced.
Yeah. It's understandable.
The core set uses a 3x3 play area like X-Wing, then once you expand your fleet into a larger battle, it uses a sort of a standard miniatures play area, about 4x6.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Very cool.
And that question was from our listener, Bob, there.
That was Bob.
Now,
yep.
we got one quote coming in from Andy, who's a longtime listener. He is in the U.S. Navy. Thank you for service. And he's currently at an undisclosed location in the sea now.
Actually, he's on land, but I thought that would be funny. If he said he was in an undisclosed
He's not deployed,
location.
then that's good. So good
He's
to know
not
you're
currently
safe.
deployed.
But he is a Navy gaming geek, and he always asks these really detailed questions. So we did have one that we didn't touch on. I think it'd be a good one for the naval fans out there. We talked about scale, but we didn't talk about time scale. So, like, can you guys talk a little bit about the time scale? Like, what's the time interval between turns are you kind of looking at, or what are you emulating as you fight?
I mean, it's abstracted. As we were mentioning when we were talking about squadrons just a moment ago, you're sort of already in the battle. You've already deployed your squadrons, and they're en route to go take care of their enemy. So I've never, explicitly determined any sort of time scale, but you are playing the climax of the battle and the approach to the climax, essentially.
Got it.
Right.
Very cool.
Yeah. You're looking at the key moments in the battle, and is your ship, in this time segment, are they focusing on gunnery or are they focusing on changing course?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I can't wait to play this more. I'm so excited because it sounds like it's just the right level of abstraction for me. I love that. I love the fact that, because if make the time slices too small in a Navy game, it can get very dry, right? Because
absolutely,
unfortunately, as much as I'm a Navy guy, unfortunately, it can be very boring.
There's an awful lot of most of these games usually devolve into maneuver, punch, and the game is over.
Right, which is probably realistic, but
but not nearly as much fun as that demo of Star Wars Armada was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving the 3x3 surface. I just think everything. It sounds, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving us this level of detail. I can't wait.
Excited.
I can't wait. And of course, I know you can't tell us a release date, so I will not ask. But Craig,
is there a queue? Is there like a quarter? Do we know like a rough general estimate?
Yeah, so I mean, we're definitely. It's no secret that we're shooting for Q1 of 2015.
Nice.
Nice.
So stay tuned to announcements.
So basically, Fantasy Flight Games wants my entire savings account in Q1 2015.
Yeah, so basically, it won't be under the Christmas tree, but just tell everybody to give you gift certificates to your local gaming store, and you'll be all set.
Yeah, you're gonna need them.
Right. This guy, guys. This
to play amazing carrier fighter battle games together.
Yeah, exactly right. I got to practice my X-Wings to get all warmed up. So it's kind of like rewatching the movies before Episode 7 comes out. It's the thing you got to do.
And I was going to say, how cool a universe is it that, we have to tide ourselves over with games of X-Wing until Armada comes out.
Right. Well, yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. And thank you specifically. We'll be talking to Mike a little bit more later this episode. But, James, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
It's been great having you both on. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, total fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hey everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakeland and check out my blog, TotalFangirl.com. This week's shout out is to all of our wonderful Patreon supporters. You too can support the show. Head over to patreon.com/the D6 Generation.
It is right now the day before Thanksgiving in the United States, which is a big deal because, well, first of all, we're getting a ton of snow, which snarls traffic. And secondly, it's one of those holidays that everybody pretty much celebrates. We all go and eat too much turkey and pumpkin pie and see our families, and it's great. And it means my kids have an extra day off from school today. They don't normally have Wednesday, but they'll have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so it's a really short week. But what they were more excited about was that last week, they only had a 4-day week because they had Friday off. And the reason they had Friday off was because a new Pokemon game came out. It was Alpha Sapphire something. I'm going to be honest. I don't even know what the game was. I know that there was big excitement in my house surrounding the release of this new Pokemon game. And in fact, my brother-in-law had said, hey, there's a midnight release at the store up by my place. You want to take all the kids to a midnight release? And my first thought was, yeah, that's awesome. And then my second thought was, oh, crud, Thursday is a school night, which means the kids will be up till midnight to get the game and then coming home and doing some math. We're looking at a 1:00 bedtime for kids that are up at 6 to go to school. I thought that's never going to work. But I really thought it would be fun for them to finally get to go to a midnight release. I mean, Russ does it somewhat frequently, but when Russ does it, he very often has scheduled in a paid time off day or a vacation day or something the day after, because he not only goes and gets his game at midnight, he then sits there and plays it, especially if his buddies are playing it, until roughly 6:00 in the morning when the girls would generally get up for school. So I said, hey, how about we do this? How about we let them play hooky on Friday? How about we just say, yeah, let's go to a midnight game release. Let's have them not go to school Friday. I'll treat Friday like a Sunday morning. I'll make some kind of epic breakfast, and they can stay up as late as they want in the wee hours of Thursday night into Friday morning playing their game. I think this took some convincing on my brother-in-law's half of things. It took absolutely zero convincing as soon as I put the idea for Russ to go, yeah, let's do that. The kids do fine in school. It's just one day, no big. So eventually the plan was set into motion. The kids all met on Thursday night, headed up to GameStop, and they all came back down here, 4 of them, sleeping bags in tow, and piled into the downstairs and played games. I didn't even know how late. I recall at one point hearing giggling and laughing coming from downstairs, and I believe it was 2:30. Then I heard giggling and laughing again, and it was only 5:30. I'd like to assume that somewhere in between 2:30 and 5:30 there was actual sleeping, but I have no proof of this whatsoever. In fact, my kids the next day, and so did my niece and nephew, slept for 14 hours apiece. So I'm thinking perhaps absolutely no sleep between 2:30 and 5:30 when I didn't notice them laughing and giggling. So I took the kids out. I called them in. I called in on Friday. I'm like, yeah, my kids aren't coming into school. I didn't even give a reason like a boss. I'm like, nope, they're just not coming. But that's the reason. No one was sick. There was no doctor's appointment. There was no good, responsible, grown-up reason why they shouldn't have been in school. I let my 2 kids play hooky so they could play games all day. They had an awesome time. It's not something we do all the time. We had a wonderful breakfast. The kids never got out of their pajamas, or in the case of my kids, never got out of the clothes that they wore the day before. They were still in their clothes when I saw them in the morning, and it was fantastic. So here I am encouraging you to be a rule breaker and a rebel. And one of these days, when all the stars align properly, just take your kids out of school for the day and have some fun and play some games.
Hey, welcome back, and now it's time to talk about our friends at Conquistador Games.
Conquistador Games.
Home of my favorite game of theirs, which, of course, is The New Science.
I'm not going to point out the grammar of that sentence. Let's just keep going.
Well, it's not new grammar, it's new science. If it was new grammar, I would lose that
science.
Game. New science, I win because it's all about the science. I love that game.
True. I would not go head to head with Russ.
Renaissance scientists battling it out to invent the latest theories in mathematics and physics and just you name it.
You can name all kinds of
stuff. Be
Copernicus,
be Isaac Newton, be whoever it needs to be to get
any
the science
biology.
Done. I'm trying to remember if there's biology. I don't think so. I'm always focused on the hard sciences.
It's the physical science.
But still, it's all there. And here's what, not the biologies and hard science. Send emails to Craig. But great games.
I don't even know what I'm saying.
Exactly. Great games at Conquistador Games. New Science is one of them. Road to Enlightenment, another one. Of course, we talk about Tomorrow all the time as well. That's sort of their They are one that's not about the past, it's about the future. Gets a little wacky. Here you're trying to do things to kill off the population because, hey, the planet's overcrowded. What are you going to do?
Only room for one of us, Russ.
And really, the best way to check out all their fantastic products is to head over. And if you're like me, I can't spell Conquistador, never mind pronounce it. So what you want to do is head over to CQ Games. You can spell out Conquistador Games, and it will take you there. But CQ Games is easier to spell, shorter, and you'll remember it.
That's what makes them geniuses.
You can head over there, check out all their great games like Road to Enlightenment, The New Science, Tomorrow, get information, check out their gaming extras like all the cool bits to bling out your games. Just don't miss out on Conquistador
Best damn
Games.
Coins.
Ever.
Don't get the best damn coins
at CQ Games
in the world.
.com.
Conquistador Games. Forget that one.
I'm Rafe Hollywood Granger, and this is the Hollywood Minute. Welcome back. I'm glad you're with me. Here, Rafe Hollywood Granger on the Hollywood Minute of the D6 generation. Happy holidays, everybody. So, a lot to talk to you about. I've got my new PC. I've got the guts of a PC. So I had my doghouse from, 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe even longer. Running smooth as butter. And I downloaded the new Dragon Age Inquisition to play. That's a whole nother story. And for the first time ever, the game would not run. And that's because I didn't check the system requirements, because when I bought the computer, it was pretty top of the line, and so I was able to enjoy a lot of the games, and without checking requirements. But this time, I needed to check the requirements, and took it into my local workshop with the nerds that you hear me talk about playing with in Portsmouth. Said that there's some new holiday deals going on Newegg, and so I've got a really good screaming machine now. I don't know what any of this stuff means, but I have a quad-core processor now, a new motherboard, and because my chassis and my power unit and my fans and a lot of the other things inside were good, I really only needed to do that, as well as I didn't even have to upgrade my video cards. And then I had to get off of Vista, which I've been wanting to do anyway, and so go to Windows 7. And so now I've got a new PC, and it all only cost me about, I think it was $479. Now, I know Russ is listening to this going, dude, that's the price of an Xbox One. What are you talking about? Well, I gotta tell you, I don't even know that I want an Xbox One. First of all, I've been enjoying my PC gaming. I like that you can do lots of different things, like play the different Sims games that I like to play, like Prison Architect and things like that. I've been enjoying, that it plays MMOs, although I haven't been playing any MMOs. And I like that, there's lots of different options on there. PC-wise, you can play the little indie games from Steam. Now, with the Xbox One, part of it is not that I think the Xbox One is a problem, although I kind of think it might be for me, but that's another story for today. But mainly because, my family is using the TV room. I don't have a man's den anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore. And so the Xbox 360 is in the living room doing what Bill Gates wanted it to do, which is the media center for the house. That's where we watch our Xbox video. That's where we watch Netflix. It's where we watch TV. So a lot of times the TV is being not manipulated, but being maintained, being utilized as a TV. And so I can't exactly push the family aside because I want to play Dragon Age. Now I can do that when everybody wants to go to bed at, let's say 9:30. After, the requisite amount of watching Nashville, which, by the way, I like that show. Grey's Anatomy. After that's all been watched, I can then sidle over, but I'll be honest with you, I hesitate to do it because I don't want to keep myself awake till 11:30 a.m. because I've got a lot going on in the work world. So, it's 9:30, everybody's in bed, I go, I could play the 360, but I don't want to be up till 11:30, so instead I watch Bar Rescue for 45 minutes. And then I call it a night, or I do some reading. So the PC, what that enables me to do is if the wife is watching some sort of wifeful show that doesn't involve me sitting on the couch, I can be in my what we call the playroom, which I can lean around the corner of the wall and see the TV, so I can kind of be, communicating like, oh, who's that on the voice? In the meantime, I could be playing on my PC. So it's not so much that I don't enjoy console gaming anymore. It's that for whatever reason, I'm not getting the console time that I used to get. Now, the other reason why I haven't pulled the trigger on the 360, on the One, is there's really no need for me to do it. So there hasn't been one game that I've wanted to get that I cannot get on the 360. So the Lord of Mordor game, which I don't have, but I've wanted to get it, you can play that in the 360. Now the third iteration of the Batman series is going to be an Xbox One only purchase, but, Xbox One only exclusive, but that game got delayed. Now, everybody's playing Destiny. I do like MMOs, but for whatever reason, other than maybe one day, I wasn't missing it. The other thing is that I'm still playing my Walking Dead series. I'm still playing my Wolf Among Us. I still have all my arcade games that are on the 360 that I still enjoy. For example, right now I'm playing a game called Valiant Hearts. Guys, anybody who likes any of the games that I like, A, should just go download it right now. B, if you are a Flames of War fan, go get it, because it's set in World War I. It's this really fun, cartoony style puzzle game. The puzzles are, frankly, they're easy, but I don't mind easy, because it's a great way to relax and spend some time, and it tells a story, and it's in connection, it's World War I in connection with the History Channel. So when you find a little findable in the game, you can click a button and then read more about it and read the history. So it's just really cool. And man, I got the game for I think $6. Oh my gosh, it's not even over yet. I'm getting hours and hours and hours of gameplay out of this. So anyway, so that's on the 360. I don't even know if that's on the One. I guess it is. Yeah, arcade still, I don't know, I'll have to ask Russ. But anyway, the other thing I'm thinking about, rather than getting a One, is I might get a PS4. I've heard just different people on podcasts. I heard Romeo mention it on this podcast that they've got the One and they regret it. Now I know Russ is turning over in his grave right now. I should say his grave. He's turning over in his newscasting studio when he does his news segment right now, thinking of that. And I know that I won't be able to communicate with all my friends that are on the One, like Andy, like Matt, like Dave Farr, like Russ. But I've got two things that are going my way. One, I've existed this long without a One, not missing one game on there. Number two, those guys like to get on and they like chat up a storm, man. It's like social hour. And I get it. That makes a lot of sense. But I like the peace and quiet of my PC games. I can type with people if I want to when I'm playing an MMO, or I can jump on Skype. I find on the 360 it's just like chatter haven on there. And I don't know. I don't know if it's my day job where I'm talking to people all day long or what it is, but I actually like a little more peace and quiet. So I'm thinking, okay, if I get a PS4, I don't know that I'll miss the chatter, although I'm sure I'll miss playing games with my friends. Although I don't play games with my friends anyway. They do, but I don't. The other thing is that there's so many exclusives that are the type of games that I like that I really think I'm leaning towards a PS4. So if I end up upgrading my console, I'm going to be crazy, man. I'm 99.99% about ready to get a PS4. Now, I'm not sure what I'll do for my TV watching. I don't have any idea if the PS4 version of Xbox Live, whatever that's called, is as good. I'm sure it probably is close. Or I'll get a Roku box, I think is the way I'm going to go to solve that problem. So anywho, that's kind of my ruminations of what I've been going on. PC gaming versus Xbox One versus PS4. Playing the game Valiant Hearts. Love that game. Go download it right now. Played the second mission of The Hobbit first expansion. I accomplished the first mission a little while ago. Played the second mission with a player, with Andy. It was so easy peasy. Nothing like the first mission at all. It's making me look forward to play it solo to see if it's any harder. I mean, we breezed through it. It's either that we're master deck builders or the second mission wasn't as hard. I'm still having a blast with that game. Also played this card game Among the Stars. It was recommended to me by Myriad. I don't know. Jury's out for me. It's a deck building game. I think a lot of people will like it, don't get me wrong, but it might be a little too mathy for me. I'm not sure I'm enjoying it. The other thing that's going on is D&D 5th is rocking awesome. Just got the new DM's guide. If you guys haven't seen that yet, go check it out. It's freaking cool. The monster manual is awesome. Running the campaign setting. Horde of the Dragon Horde of the Dragon Queen. It is really cool. We have due to some snow delays, we got delayed, but we have our next session, not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday, and, gonna play final episode of Dark Heresy this Tuesday. Super looking forward to that. We'll fill you in how that went. Also looking forward to appearing on the show with the boys to take care of predictions and whatnot. And let's see, comics. Oh, I was listening to Comic Dorks and episode 20. I highly recommend you listen to that episode. Great episode. Talk about the future of comic stores, and also kind of talking about women and girls and how women are portrayed in comics. Super interesting. And that led me to want to read the new Batgirl, which is portraying women in a pretty cool way, which I agree with. And then nothing to do with women, but a new comic start called Gotham Academy, which is, I guess, Harry Potter meets Gotham. Now, I've read the first issue. I don't quite see that yet, but I can see the somewhat similarities. But anyway, those are my two reads. And of course, loving Walking Dead and Chew. So, I think my time's about up. Glad to reach out to you guys again. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on the Twitter, on the D6G Hollywood on Twitter. Get over to the blog at jimmyjango.com. Oh, and as far as my video subscribers, thank you for subscribing. The status is that I am building a porch to button up in the winter. It's been taking me a lot longer to get this porch built due to the fact that A, I don't know what I'm doing. B, I have to wait on my brother-in-laws to help me because they have the know-how. C, it seems that every weekend I go to sit down and do it, it rains and snows and sleets. So anyway, my point is that any spare hour that I can, I've been trying to get that porch buttoned up. And where I'm stuck now is with my new computer. I downloaded a new program to try to, do some some video of me playing Dragon Age, but it didn't record, and I just got really frustrated. So the two steps are going to try to record that, and then the other one is I'm going to try to piece together again. Once I can get the screen video sorted out, I can piece together the videos I got at Gen Con. So thank you guys for subscribing. Haven't forgotten about it. Just running into some technical difficulties and not the time to nail it down. I will talk to you guys later. Happy gaming.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, and now it's time for us to talk about our fine friends over at Game Salute.
GameSalute.com. These are the guys who bring all the games to you that you wouldn't get any other way. They help great game designers and other organizations get their games to Kickstarter, lead them through that maze of challenges there is in getting your game published, whether it's knowing how much to set your Kickstarter up for, how to get games shipped, distributed, how much to charge for shipping, make sure you don't lose your home over your game, all that kind of stuff. They make sure you avoid those landmines and bring fantastic games. Craig, have you seen some of the new games they now are promoting and talking about and are helping get live?
Yeah, let me tell you, Luchador 2
Luchador
just
2
came out. I've been playing that up like a storm.
Now with a mat, now with a ring, yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
The cardboard ring. Not everybody can go out and get a $50 laser cut titanium bolt ring like I got from Will.
Right.
But these guys have a 3D ring and it's solid. I was afraid when in the Kickstarter this was going to be, flimsy cardboard. It's not. It is solid. You play it. It stays up. I was just playing a tournament today, actually, when we're finishing up taking down the set, and I rewarded the kids with a little game day. And my entire second year theater class, I divided them into tag teams, and we did a tag team tournament. It was awesome. But let's not stop there, Russ.
Right.
I mean, remember the newest Tiny Epic Hotness, Tiny Epic Kingdom.
Yeah.
The first 4X I've enjoyed in years.
Oh, yeah. And you know what else is great, Craig? This is kind of cool. They also help great folks out there bring games to market, like, Tom Vassel's Nothing Personal is out there. They've got that. It's back in stock. Another one I love, Alien Frontiers, 4th edition now is back in stock with a reversible board, so the coming soon rocket dice will work on the back there. But cool. This is very meta, Craig. They are now they're behind the Kickstarter for Board Game Geek the card game. Have you seen this? And the cards in this are games. For example, you got the Ticket to Ride card, you've got the Castle Panic card, you've got the Summoner Wars card, the Suburbia card, the Werewolf card.
That is meta.
It's a game within games within games about a board game website, pretty much, is what you got there. So
80 different games in Board Game Geek, the game.
And only GameSalute can get that meta. So if you want to see all that craziness, head on over to GameSalute.com.
Woo!
You're listening to the D6 generation. Born to game.
Hey guys, just got a last minute shout out from one of our fine patrons over at Patreon. Wanted to make sure we included this in there. Frank wanted to make sure we shared that, if you're a fan of horror and investigation RPGs, check out The Weird Detective, funding right now on Kickstarter. The cool rulebook is only $5 and it's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Frank, and thanks for supporting us on Patreon.
This is the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com.
Hey, welcome back. And now, Craig, we had to do this, right? So since Michael's here with us this week, we get a lot of great feedback when we get a chance to talk to someone who's in the industry, building games, working the dream job with a major company like Fantasy Flight, which is just
games
fantastic.
that we love.
Games we love. People want to know. They love to hear, what the job's like, how'd you get the job, how'd you get in there. So Michael, we thought, since you're here, we'd love to ask you a few of those kind of hard-hitting, sort of newsworthy questions.
Right.
So Michael, the first question we have to ask everybody, and this is a little redundant because we already know from Achievements in Game you definitely are a gamer, but we have to ask you, you now?
Tradition.
It's a tradition now. Are you now, or have you ever been a gamer?
I believe I can confirm that I am in fact a gamer.
Thank God for that.
I've been a gamer probably since before I actually had heard the term.
Wow,
because just due to my interest.
Yeah.
So,
now, what were some of the first games you kind of cut your teeth on, as it were?
Well, I mean, there's the obvious ones like Monopoly and the game where you put an ant together.
Cooties. Is it a Cooties? Is that the one? I think so. You build an ant or build a caterpillar or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of that. But that was one of the first games we were playing. But
Ants in the Pants, Icebreaker, classics, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But I think the first hobby type games that I played were, I didn't actually play. I played some role playing games in like junior high.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely played a lot of video games as a kid, and I think one of the I got into Warhammer when I was in junior high, I think, and I played games like Shadowrun and things like that.
Nice. What game are there? Some games that you remember fondly from your childhood that are definitely gamery games? Like, that was my favorite game when I was a kid. I played that all the time.
The game I played a lot that I come back to again and again was Warhammer 40,000 Epic Scale.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. That was a great game.
I played a lot of that game in high school, and it's funny. I played more of that than like Warhammer 40,000.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my Warhammer formative experience, was playing Space Marine.
Nice.
Cool.
Nice. Now, so what made you kind of decide, or how did you get into the industry? How did you kind of go from just game lover to game maker?
Well, I kind of always, in college, it was kind of one of those things. I wanted to do something creative at some point, and I kind of pursued some, a career track that I thought would give me some of the skills I would need.
Uh-huh.
And I worked as a technical writer for a long time, and I was always looking for different things to do or opportunities. But sometimes I was really semi-serious about it, and sometimes I was not so intense. And I think I got to a point where I was like, okay, I kind of just want to see if I can, find something to do professionally. And I stumbled upon a job listing with Fantasy Flight. I started researching the company, and that kind of led to me, getting into this opportunity.
And what was the job listing you applied for? What was the tiny little ad?
Producer, the job I have now.
Oh, really? Went right in. You didn't even mess around with mail clerk or floor mopper or anything like that.
No, in my case, no. I was very fortunate because it's one of the great things about Fantasy Flight is that we post positions publicly. You can just see them on the web when they're available, and I had worked long enough in what I'd been doing before. I'd worked for an insurance company for many years as a marketing analyst for a time, and then I was a technical writer. And so in my case, I had transferable experience that helped.
Oh, very cool. So when you got in, what was sort of like how you got your first gig? Like, what was your expectation going in? Like, what were you thinking? Like, when you saw the line, game producer, what in your head, what do you think that was going to do before you actually did the job? Like, what does that mean? I get to do?
Well, it was pretty clear that a producer would be a lot like a bit like being a project manager. I used to work in an IT environment, and but that it would involve a lot of being a good collaborator, working with different areas, tying people together and kind of being a conduit to get things done, and get exposed to a lot of different aspects of the industry. Those were kind of the impressions I had before. And they're definitely things. I mean, a lot of those things are true about what I spend my days and nights doing.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, what was your very first project there?
I started by helping out with Dust Tactics and Dust Warfare.
Nice.
And helping a lot. I was the new person on the team, and I was helping a lot with simple things like, reading rules, editing, proofreading, helping with any tasks, additional tasks that needed to be done, that sort of thing. It was a very good way to learn about working for my organization and working with other people in the game industry.
Cool. And so what kind of work were you doing at that stage?
A lot of the sort of things that we do. One of the things the producer does a lot of is look at packaging and look at ensure quality control of things. And that also extends to playtesting and making sure that the game runs smoothly and is going to be a fun experience for everybody out there in the world.
Now, when you got involved with the Dust project, was it pretty well polished, or were you kind of coming in the middle or early days, or how much of a hand did you have in that particular project?
I came in at late days when the game was very close to its launch, and so I got to see kind of the end stages of working on a project like that, and it was very instructive, and I also got to hear a lot about how the project had come together. And so a lot of my early contributions were helping, Mac Martin and Zach Tualtimus to get things ready to go out the door. And that's just, simple things like giving the rules a read through, one thing that it is no surprise and no secret, like in an industry like this, we proofread things a lot to make sure that they're ready. So
If you're doing it right, you do.
Right, for sure.
You're doing it right, yes. If being professional, yes.
Yeah.
All those things.
Yeah, well, as you know, as a listener of the show, you know Craig and I were huge fans of Dutch Warfare. So, that was that had quality all the way through in it. So that was a really impressive project.
So your pedigree is already starting off.
Yeah,
strong.
you already had a good start there, I would say.
That was a lot of fun to work on. I'm still a fan of Dust Warfare.
Yeah.
It was definitely a really great project to get a start on. And I got to do a lot of different. The start of things was me just learning a little bit at a time. But as my involvement went on, I got to do other areas. I got to assist in other things, help with more playtesting, and eventually I got to help with some content development for some of the later books.
Very cool.
So I'm glad you guys liked it too.
Oh yeah.
Now, when you played, what was the faction you enjoyed playing the most? Not the best or the strongest or the prettiest, just the one that you liked. Oh, wait a minute, there were only two. No, there were three.
So it's funny. I ended up, despite myself being an allied player, and at the start I kind of wanted to play Axis. That was kind of a goal I had set, and then I ended up playing a campaign for fun with some friends, and we needed an extra Axis player, allied player, and I had the models, and I ended up really enjoying the allied play style, especially with like the different jump units and like the tanks that jump, their ability, and yeah. How about you guys?
Well, I ended up being a allied player, but I wanted to get SSU in the end. I never got that far, but I love the ally. For the same reason, I love the background, and I love the armor and the jump tanks and everything else. It was just a fantastic universe, and the mechanics were awesome. Craig, you were Axis.
I was
right?
Axis.
Yeah.
After I read the rules and learned that I could be World War II German without being a Nazi. So and I loved it, and I too eventually was really very intrigued by the SSU, but by that time my faith in where the game was going had waned, and so I didn't do what I would have normally done at that point, which was to buy an entire giant army.
Right.
Yeah, the SSU, I didn't play them as much as the other two factions, but they're also a fun different play style.
Yeah,
and who doesn't want a giant helicopter in a game like that?
Of course. And then the other aircraft, oh my gosh, it was so much good. The models are great. It's just what a great game. So after Dust Warfare, what was your next project?
Well, it's one thing about working in an industry like this is you're not. Especially as a producer, you can have a hand in several things that are going on concurrently, and so. I also had an opportunity to help out with X-Wing for a time, especially with waves 2 and 3. I helped out with some of the playtesting, some of the other behind the scenes things, some of the different producer tasks. If we can when we talk more about that. So that was kind of, I spent a fair amount of time working on X-Wing, helping out with my boss and with James, who we all discussed, because James was working on X-Wing at that time.
Yeah,
very cool.
So that was kind of how James and I worked together initially as a team.
How early on were you involved with X-Wing? Because X-Wing's obviously an unqualified success. The game's a huge, massive hit, and to the point where it's rivaling other miniature war games in terms of how many tournaments there are and worldwide acceptance, and just obviously huge game. Were you there when you jumped in? Was it already sort of rolling, gathering speed downhill, or did you kind of come in still not knowing if you guys are going to knock out of the park, or was that uncertain feeling of you think it's good but you don't really know yet?
Well, yeah. Again, one great thing about working for a company like this is, things are a real team effort. I definitely cannot claim any credit for making X-Wing what it was, or what it came to be, at least initially. when I came to the company, it was something we were working on, and I was I did play tests and things like that, but I'm once the game was launched, then there was room for others of us within FFG to help out with it. It was in a pretty mature state when I started, and I had very little to do with it when I first came on board. And it was later when there was a need for somebody to assist with, again, some of the the kind of tasks producers do. And that was when I was asked to just kind of help out, and it became something it became an experience I really enjoyed. I'm actually I'm kind of proud I got to do something with that. So yeah.
Very cool. Now you said your producer roles kind of expand a little bit. So you described some of the tasks with Dust. What kind of broader tasks did you have in X-Wing? Did you start doing more producery things, or was it just a lot more of sort of the same sort of? You mentioned a lot of play testing. You mentioned a lot of rules review. You mentioned package review. Was it sort of the same things with X-Wing, or did your role kind of broaden a little bit when you get to X-Wing?
I would say a lot of more of the same. A lot of the similar things. The thing about being a producer, and I think I touched on it a little earlier, is as I would say, like, the primary function of my job is to be, or one of the primary functions of my job is to be a good collaborator. So, I spent a lot of my time on Dust and on X-Wing, and most recently on Star Wars Armada, collaborating with the designer and helping to support them to get to achieve their goals and to like help the project to meet its goals. And so on X-Wing, I did a lot of those things, those like administrative things, organizational things, which we can talk some more about those functions, I think, in a little bit.
All right, cool. And then, so what you're doing was X-Wing an exclusive thing, or were you already working on other projects while you were working on X-Wing as well?
I was still helping out with Dust because, of course, those two games were going on at the same time.
Right.
So I was splitting my time between two teams and doing a little bit on one project, a little bit on another. I helped at the time that X-Wing was going on. I was helping out with, for example, like campaign books Verigrad, and then campaign book Hades, and then I think I helped out with around the time that campaign book Icarus was a project. I ended up working on that and kind of not having as much involvement with X-Wing because in that time I was working on. I started working on Disc Wars.
There you go. So now you're moving into Disc Wars. So now it sounds like that
the pedigree just keeps getting better and better.
I know, right? So with Disc Wars, it sounds like with X-Wing the project was already underway when you got there a little bit. Was Disc Wars one of the projects you were involved with from the very beginning?
Yes, that was definitely a project that I got to be a part of from start to finish, and that was also a unique experience that I'm glad I got to have.
And what made the Disc Wars experience feel more unique maybe than X-Wing or Dust? Was it just that you were there from the beginning, got to see the whole thing happen, or is there more different kinds of engagement, or how did that work?
Well, I was the lead producer on Disc Wars.
Okay.
And that was the first project that I got to do that with. And so I was more directly responsible for a lot of aspects of the game.
Cool.
And I got to be a part of the whole process, and that's it's a different thing than, when you get brought on board any kind of project and, you're there to help out and be an extra hand. It's it's kind of different when, when you're there the whole way, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have had those experiences in your lives.
Right.
With Craig, you mentioned working on plays, and it's I did some plays, I did some drama at one time, so I kind of like that, when you're there for every aspect of the show, and when it's opening night, you're like, oh, I worked on that flat, or
Right.
I proofread the program,
That's very cool. So with Disc Wars, what was some of since you were there from beginning to end, like what was I'm always curious to know like what some of the bigger challenges were, and then what are you most proud of that project, or what sort of aspect of it that you had a hand in you think was really like you mentioned, like I proofread the playbill or whatever, what's the part of Disc Wars where you're like, that I'm just really pleased with how that particular aspect came together, and also what was the most challenging part of the project?
Sure. So I think one of the things that Lucas Litzinger was the designer, and so I worked with him very closely, and he was working to make the game, to update the game based on the vision we had, and I was there to help be a good sounding board. That's one of the things that, when we work in teams, that's one of the great things about working for a company like Fantasy Flight is we get to collaborate with each other. And I think that if I was looking at, the kinds of things that I was responsible for overseeing were like how are the discs going to be physically made, and what should we provide in the package? I'm responsible for keeping things on budget, but I'm also helping to play the game and to help the designer move things forward. I think, and I think one of the things that we worked on together that I feel like I'm really proud with the final game is the way that the terrain system and the setup of the game works. And that was something that a lot of those were Lucas's ideas, but we discussed a lot of those things, and so the outcome was sort of a joint effort. And I feel like that makes the game, that adds a lot of the zing to the game.
Yeah, it's a very cool and very unique way to do that. I love the simplicity yet effectiveness of the terrain rules, and I really like how setup and deployment works too in Disc Wars. It's really, really unique, but very engaging.
Yeah, I think the whole game is really elegant.
Yeah, it really is.
To get that whole miniatures experience in with, as you say, just like one or two sentences of oh my God, of keywords and things like that.
Word.
Keyword descriptions and. Just you can tell that it was really refined and tightened and proofread and everything else for a long time and very intensely to get that much game into that small a box. And the fact that I have 10 Warhammer armies in a little briefcase in my trunk at all times is pretty impressive too.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a great game.
We had a good foundation to build off of, right? And that's
right.
It's one of those things, talking about the process is taking a great game like that and modernizing it and discussing like what do we want to do with that to make it a little more contemporary, and definitely also there's another producer task that I think about, but also the designers thinking about too, is like, what are we going to do to make this feel like Warhammer?
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and that came across too. So it's just a great game. So while you were doing Disc Wars, so it sounds like you were in X-Wing. Disc Wars kicked off. Your work on X-Wing sort of you transitioned more to Disc Wars. Then what was the next project?
That would be Star Wars Armada.
Yeah, it's not even out yet, but you guys are heavy. And of course, we talked to you guys in detail about Armada.
in the last segment.
Early in the show. But we didn't talk to you much about so just in general though, how did the transition over to that go, and what were your feelings when you learned, like, okay, we're going to be doing Armada and it's going to be X-Wing but with fleets?
I was super excited. I love Star Wars, and we're, as an organization, we're very passionate about Star Wars, and so it seemed, and I think I mentioned, like when we talked earlier, the thing I really loved in a lot of those Star Wars novels was the fleet battles and the strategies that they talked about. I was really jazzed. But I also knew that it was going to be a unique challenge.
Yeah, I think I can't wait for Armada, and we already talked about it for a while. So I don't want to belabor the Armada point, but man, cannot wait for that. Now, are you working? I mean, I guess since Armada is going to be releasing in the not too distant future, I don't know. Is your work winding down on that now, and you're on a net new project, or are you still pretty much full bore focusing on Armada right now?
Well, a producer's work is never done.
There you go.
Put it that way. I mean, we're always working to. There are many tasks involved with projects this complexity, and we are always working to get those things done that are going to be necessary for a game's launch.
Yeah.
And so there's just a lot of things that go on behind the scenes.
So are you involved in all that stuff, like as a producer, right? So, I got to think at some point, like designers will tell us, and Craig just sort of hinted at this earlier in the episode when he talked about his work on some of the Fantasy Flight RPGs, that the designer obviously some of these games are designed over years, right? And so, the designer gets done at X time period. The game still doesn't launch for 6, 8, 12 months since he or she's already moved on to their new project. But it sounds like as the producer, are you pretty much running right up to go live with this thing, where you're looking at, working with marketing, working with promotions, working with, getting it distributors, working with getting the thing shipped from wherever it's getting manufactured, from overseas or whatever. Are you involved in all those steps as well, all those logistical steps?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that I have in my role, I get to be a part of everything.
Wow.
So
nice.
Yeah.
So you're basically riding this thing all. So it is very much like a project manager. You're riding this thing all the way till done, as we say, which basically means it's finished being built, it's been shipped to the customers, people are happy, and now we can evaluate whether or not it was a win or not, and move on to the next thing.
I think that's a fair characterization. So I spend a lot of my time. I get my marching orders, and I try to execute them to the best of my ability, and I try to make sure that everybody is functioning as a unit smoothly, and I try to help us realize our vision.
Very cool. So let me ask you my hard question now. So across all these projects and all this time you've had at Fantasy Flight, what's sort of the biggest lesson you've learned or most unexpected thing you've discovered as being a game producer?
I think it would be fair to say that it is the ongoing nature of working in a field like this. You would think that it's easy to perceive it as a bunch of projects in serial, but in reality, you have a hand in a lot of different things, and there are many tasks to be done to support different games that are going on at the same time. And so I think it's like any great, like a lot of endeavors, it's it's putting one foot in front of the other, every day. And that's how things get done,
Very cool. Very cool. So, well, that's awesome, Michael. Well, thank you so much for sharing the behind the scenes look. And I have one more question, because I often wonder this, and maybe you can't share this, and that's fine, you can't. But I'm curious, as like a company the size of Fantasy Flight, like how many, or were you surprised by how many projects are in sort of, pardon the pun, flight at the same time, right? So, are you looking out going, wow, we're doing 6 games at once? Is it like that, or is it more of a? Is it really there's like 2 or 3 going on at a time, and it's just the way things stack up on release date? It feels like there's more going on at once, or is it really like there's a bunch of little projects happening all the time?
We're very good at keeping a lot of things moving forward. Mm-hmm. I think it's no secret that we have a very broad and diverse catalog of offerings, mm-hmm. and so what our organization is really good at is balancing a lot of that and keeping a lot of things moving concurrently. And so, and I think that's something I was trying to allude to without getting too overly specific is, I do a lot of different things. Yeah.
They're cool. Well, thanks again, Michael, for coming on the show. Craig, any last questions for Michael here?
No, I just want to say, Michael, thank you very much for giving of your time. You're obviously a very busy man.
Right.
And, I don't think it was a mistake that we brought you on at our absolute earliest opportunity. And all 4 of these big projects you've so far put your stamp on have been favorites between both Russ and myself.
Oh, yes, exactly.
So thank you for your time. But even more important, thank you for these 3 awesome games, and I'm absolutely sure that Armada will rise right up into the hallowed. Forget it. I can't even speak my native language.
But Michael, if people want to know what the latest stuff is going on, where can they find out all about the new hotness from Fantasy Flight? What's going on now, and when these games are going to launch and that kind of thing?
Well, they should definitely go to our website, www.fantasyflightgames.com, and that is all together in one string, no spaces, no breaks, and you can find out a lot about what we have on offer right now.
Yeah, and you guys do a great job too of putting up like preview rules before the games come out and articles to get you excited about how all these games are going to work, and so you can already get some pretty good insights into some of the stuff that's coming in Armada right there on your website, which is pretty awesome, even though it's not out yet.
Yeah, there are a number of preview articles up, and they're really good at explaining how the game functions.
Yep. And I also love that you guys publish all your game rules for all your games. So if you're thinking about getting into Disc Wars and you're like, are the rules cool? You can look at them right online before you even buy the game, which it's also fantastic. So great stuff.
No doubt.
Well, thanks again, Michael. Best of luck with the big launch for Armada. We can't wait. I know it's still a ways away, but I cannot wait till it's out and making little pew 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 noises as my X-wings destroy Craig's TIE fighters. Pretty much.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen because I'm gonna have X-wings.
Oh, fine. Well, you're obviously a traitor.
Civil War.
Yeah,
Civil War.
Here we go. All right,
Civil War within the Civil War.
It's on now.
Michael, has there been any refinement for the release date, or is that still sort of up in the air and or under lock and key, as they say?
I can definitely tell you to keep your eyes open in first quarter 2015, and that has not changed. So,
okay, cool. I can live with that. That's close enough.
That's by spring. By spring thaw, we will have probably Armada. That's what we're hearing.
Or sooner.
Hopefully sooner.
Just saying.
Thanks again, Michael. Really, really appreciate it. Great to have you on the show, and have a great holiday season.
Yes, absolutely.
For having me as a guest.
No problem.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for us too, as well, Michael.
That's right.
And thanks for that demo at Gen Con. It was awesome. This Did You Ever Notice is brought to you by all of the men and women who have stepped up to help and support the show over on Patreon as our new patrons. I'm going to include this time around Greg Barlow, John Weber, Dave McAvoy, Neil Dixon, and Marsham. Seriously, thanks a lot, guys. And please, the rest of you, just go over on and check it out. just dropping a couple bucks in the tip jar every episode really helps us, well, explain this to our wives. But it also helps us do things for you guys. It helps us get out there more, helps us get more games so we can review and then ultimately give away. And, we're really trying, we've heard one of the only complaints, and that is advertising. And we've heard that, and built into the Patreon structure that we've come up with is the attempt to drop advertisers so you have less to listen to. So just go on over there, laugh at the way we talk and the way we look when we're talking, and give it a thought. Okay. We really, really do appreciate it. Do you ever notice there's only so much you can do in a given day? I've been told that throughout my entire life. In fact, my father's favorite complaint about me as I was growing up is that I always tried to put too much into every day, and it was never really productive stuff as far as, grown-ups were concerned. And so, of course, I sort of have a reputation now for pushing that limit and doing more than I should. Between the writing and the podcast and when I'm doing the play and actual work and the games that I play and the painting that I do, there's an awful lot of stuff. And I know I will admit that I push it too far. And lately it's sort of come to a head. Over Thanksgiving, we had a rotten Thanksgiving. Situationally, we had an awesome actual Thanksgiving, but we had this massive blizzard of heavy wet snow that knocked the power out the day before, in the night. Well, you don't know, but anyway, we were recording the last episode, and in the middle of recording it, right after we recorded Rapid Fire, the power went out in my house, and then 10 minutes later, about 30 miles away, the power went out in Russ's house. So that really knocked our schedule out that we've been knocked out the entire time. We're trying to get it back. But it was very frustrating. And then, of course, my really expensive generator that I accidentally got with the house when we bought it, that didn't work. It was just a nightmare. And so I didn't get any of my fun stuff done that I wanted to get done. I was really frustrated, aggravated, my serious stress. You'd think short stories wouldn't be stressful, but trust me, there was a lot of stress behind those short stories. And the play had just been done. And here I was looking forward to getting some nice solid hobby time in. And the power went out, and it was just ridiculous. And so my wife is scrambling around. We were supposed to host over 15 people. We had no power. Obviously, the oven wasn't working. We had no heat. We had no water. Until someone could fix the generator, we were done. So we ended up moving all that to my parents' house. We had a great Thanksgiving. Everything was going great. And I decided I wasn't going to give up on gaming, so I called my old friends in Low Jog, and I know that they're regular D&D gamers, and I haven't played D&D in years and years and years and years and years, but it's really hard to get them to come to my house where we have to meet because my son is with me, so he's in bed upstairs, but it's very hard to get them to come over here and play a game. So I said, hey, why don't we play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, because they know it backwards and forwards, and I figure we'll be reviewing it sometime in the not so distant future, so I'd like to have them play a game. And of course they jumped at that with like a 2-day head start. A month ahead, I can't get them to come over here and play any of the other games, but I mainly just want to hang out with these guys. So, not as opposed to other people, but I mainly want to hang out. The game is secondary with these guys. So D&D, it was awesome. But I have these cavern tiles from Dwarven Forge, right? And I have these bones models from the Reaper Bones Vampire, the first one. And so I make these giant plans. I'm going to get all these cavern tiles painted up. I'm going to paint up everybody's character. Now I'm forgetting these guys are veterans. They've got every model that's ever been put out with the D&D minis games. They have everything. Nobody needs anything. I'm like, oh, come on, guys. Ultimately, I used a model that I had already painted because painting these cavern tiles was taking forever. Probably double the amount of time I took to paint up the dungeons. So it's been very frustrating. The water tiles look great, but they took probably 4 times as long as in my head I thought they were going to take. And so I just kept getting more and more frustrated. I pulled out some of my tricks from the old days. I must have been much younger then. I stayed up till 3:00 in the morning painting a couple times, Thanksgiving weekend. And at the same time I was trying to just create my my Dungeons and Dragons character, which I think I already mentioned on the show, was a giant pain in the butt. I hated character creation. I found it extremely frustrating. But I was pushing through. I was trying to do all this stuff. I was exhausted all the time. All the next week we had an awesome time. It was great. Then we had an awesome time. This is what happened. My brain is now fried, literally, because I had a terrible week all the next week. I was exhausted. I had headaches. I was forgetful. I don't know if you've noticed in this episode. To me anyway, it feels like I'm stuttering a lot more. Didn't pay any attention to those. My wife and I went down to Boston for a book signing. And his name escapes me too. See, this is a bad situation. We came home that Friday night the week after Thanksgiving, and my body decided to tell me for the first time that I'm an idiot. And I had what they call a complex migraine. You can either look it up or some of you will know what it's like. It's pretty much at the outside range of unpleasant, without any actual permanent damage, except for the constant fear that it's going to happen again. And it was awful. I was in the hospital. It was the whole 9 yards. I'm still very shaky. So it's really, really something serious. And I have to face this idea that there's actually a limitation to what I have to do. And it's super important to focus on my health. So, what I'm going to do is, and you guys can keep me honest, because I'm going to keep you up to date every now and then. So every few episodes, I'll tell you how I'm doing, but, I'm going to eat more healthy, and I have to get sleep. That's not easy for me. First of all, I like to, when I'm painting, I set a schedule in my head of what I want to accomplish. And if I've mistaken the scenario or I've underestimated the task at hand, I will continue until I'm done with that task rather than setting a specific time to end, knowing I can pick up wherever I leave off. It's like painting. It's not, like skiing downhill or something like that. So I'm going to set time limits rather than projects for my painting. Gonna start getting exercise again. These are all the things that fell apart when my fall has been atrocious, health-wise, other people's health. And everybody's great now, which is awesome. So thank God and all of the angels and, Buddha and everybody for that. But what I have to do is I have to face the facts that I know this is going to surprise some of you, but I am mortal. And so I'm going to have to cut off painting, and I'm going to eat better. I'm going to exercise. And the key, because it was further diagnosed as a stress-induced complex migraine, is that I have to start limiting the stress. My goal is to not cut out anything. So the podcast is still a priority. I'm still going to write for as long as people let me. I have to teach, so I'll be there. And I don't want to miss out on gaming. So I'm going to try to keep all of these things balanced, and I'll keep you focused. And as a cautionary tale out there, guys, you can't do it all forever, especially when you're getting up there. And as much as I am embarrassed to admit it, I'm getting up there. So you be aware of your health, because you can't play games and paint if you're laid up in the hospital. And you definitely can't play games and paint if your wife is looking over your shoulder constantly, because she's terrified that you're going to have another one of these things. So for your health, for your sake, and for your long-term gaming happiness, try to be reasonable and aware of the toll what you're doing is taking. And I think that's I could have sworn there was something and I can't remember it. So there you go. Hopefully this weird memory thing will fade. That'd be awesome. And so that's all I've got to say about that. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Achievement unlocked. You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode. the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
And now another not too horrible hit from the D6Generation.com.
The first thing in gaming that really frustrates me, avoiding a cheesy army. The second thing in gaming that really frustrates me,
packing up the pieces
and avoiding a cheesy army. The third thing in gaming that really frustrates me,
time to paint my models,
packing up the pieces
and avoiding a cheesy army. The fourth thing in gaming that really frustrates me,
playing with my meeples,
time to paint my models,
packing up the pieces
and avoiding a cheesy army. The fifth thing in gaming that really frustrates me, Twilight Imperium,
playing with my meeples,
time to paint my models,
packing up the pieces
and avoiding a cheesy army. The sixth thing in gaming that really frustrates me,
dice off the table,
5 hours of TI.
Look, a meeple pyramid,
time to paint my models,
maybe if I got some baggies,
and avoiding a cheesy army. The seventh thing in gaming that really frustrates me,
him getting home on time.
Damn, it's by your foot.
5 more hours of TI.
This meeple's doing a handstand,
time to paint my models,
does the board go on top or bottom?
And avoiding a cheesy army. The eighth thing in gaming that really frustrates me,
getting pwned by noobs,
him getting home on time.
And now your other foot.
Another 5 hours of TI.
Happy Meeple Circle,
time to paint my models,
where'd those rubber bands go?
And avoiding a cheesy army. The ninth thing in gaming that really frustrates me,
keeping track of tokens,
getting pwned by noobs.
Fine, 20 more minutes.
Dice off the table,
still more hours of TI.
Line up my little meeples,
time to paint my models,
the box almost closes,
and avoiding a cheesy army. The 10th thing in gaming that really frustrates me,
rulebooks with no index,
keeping track of tokens.
Is that kid really 10?
You said 20 minutes ago.
Dice off the table,
days and days of TI.
Aw, now they're holding hands,
time to paint my models,
maybe a tackle box,
and avoiding a cheesy army. The 11th thing in gaming that really frustrates me,
dice that betray me,
rulebooks with no index.
Which ship did I destroy?
He was older than he looks.
I'm not waiting up again.
Dice off the table,
an eternity of TI.
Meeple conga line,
time to paint my models,
what about duct tape?
And avoiding a cheesy army. The 12th thing in gaming that really frustrates me, staying in my budget,
dice that betray me.
Where are the psychology rules?
I lost all my damage markers.
There's still age and treachery.
That's it, I'm going to bed.
Dice off the table,
dying of old age while playing TI.
Meeple Massacre.
What's the website for painted figs?
Screw it, I'm just leaving it set up.
And avoiding a cheesy army.
Happy holidays from the D6 generation.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Christmas.
And
Happy holidays,
Hanukkah.
everybody.
The preceding Not Too Horrible hit was brought to you by
The D6Generation.com and their wives.